Welcome all to the school board meeting for the Grant Hall School District. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Tonight we have with us Director Dane, Director Ledoux, Director Kincaid, Director Carey, and I am Director Beach, as well as our student representative and Dr. Middleton. Thank you all. So we will begin first with district reports. Crossroads High School Open Doors School Improvement Plan presented by Bridget McVeigh.
Okay, and I'm not sure if they told you about open doors royalty isn't on here. We just put in partial document, but if you have questions regarding open doors, happy to answer that. Okay, so our 21-22 goal for dual credit was to maintain dual credit. Maintain the percentage, which is 35%, and we actually went down. We were trying to figure out, we went down to 17.3%. So in 2019-20, we received a grant to increase our dual credit options, and we were able to pay a stipend to one of the teachers who really focused on dual credit. And the year, but this year we're just not sure if the indicators were corrected skyward, so we actually don't know if this is even if they're accurate, but this is what OSPI has. So it has that down to 13.8. Lovely. Oh no, that was the homeless students. So unfortunately, our dual credit numbers decreased. I'm sorry to say. I just go through. You guys ask questions during, or do we wait for it?
Whatever works best for you, but typically we do at the end.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yep.
Doesn't matter. Okay, so we are doing some training with the registrars over summer break, because I think we had lots of changes in registrars at both high schools in the last 2 years. I think the high schools had 3, we've had 2, and that has caused some. I think there's a bit of a lack of training, so we are going to do the training during the summer. We also we don't get CTE money for alternative programs because we're funded through on the Running Start formula. So we use our OSSI grants to fund our CTE programs, like for the supply and things like that. So we will continue with that and pay through the OSSI grant for training. We have 3 brand new CTE teachers. This also could be the 21-22 year was the year that CTE teacher, the only one had retired. So I don't know, sometimes people get tired at the end. I'm really not sure what was going on. What we've got, so we have the trainings, professional development. Several of our teachers are 3 brand new teachers that will be attending the summer conference. And then we also have a training, I believe, next week through. There's a consortium of colleges that do dual credit, so we're doing a training next week to learn more. Okay. So dropout rate, we wanted to reduce it by 10%, and we dropout rate actually increased to 22.6%. I think it's the first time in the history of our school, and I think it has to do with COVID, but we'll continue to expand and adjust our programs. So, we've made several shifts in programming And started, we had always had night school, but we now have a remote program. It's not remote, we are calling it a flexible learning option. And that really, Elizabeth is sort of, she's her second year teaching, and she has kind of taken it on as her babies for projects. So we are up to 60 students in that program. It's pretty packed in there, and we're running it with open doors kind of simultaneously. So teachers are busy working on curriculum and creating, giving students some voice in their learning. In order for us to have a flexible learning option, we can't have that. We cannot have it 100% remote, because we're not allowed to have a 100% online program, because we have 2 districts here. So we would have to apply for a special through OSPI, and the students do much better when we make them come in. So, and our TMTSS, so trauma informed multi-tiered system of supports, we actually meet our goal there. So we were going to increase our tiered interventions by 1 evidence base for each area. So tier 1 was, we reestablished the positive greeting at the door. That was something that we were doing very diligently prior to COVID, and then kind of got a little bit lazy on it. And then computer sign in and sign out, and a tracking app for leaving classrooms. So students were doing some skipping and gone for long periods of time. So we have a computer at every door, and the students put their student number in. And then Greg and Heidi, our campus monitor, have an app on their phone, so they know what students are out of class. It's in real time, so they know what students are out of class, where they said they were going. They can monitor that. So, and then that's every student does that. Tier 2 is class pass and check in and check out. So class pass would be, we take the 5 top offenders on our computer out system. So the students who are not in class, our wanderers, our 5 top wanderers, and we put them on the class pass system. So they get a certain amount of passes for the week, and they have to turn that into the teachers in order to leave class. And then once they're out, they're out. Well, actually for the day, we do it daily because we get the lists and some. So, and then tier 3 is, we just were working on mostly getting process for hospitalization, because during COVID, another thing that happened is DCR, which are the designated crisis responders, quit coming out, and some new legislation passed. So we had to reestablish what we were going to do when students are suicidal and have a plan and feel like they may need hospitalization. So had to reestablish that, and we now call 911 sometime, and then it really depends on who we get, what happens. But those students all are on safety plans, and then we try and refer them to outside counseling services. If we can't do that, then we refer them to Ashley services. Okay. So for this year, our goal was to increase the number of on-track 9th graders. And so they are doing daily social emotional learning. So we did the Ignite. I know the high school did it as well. We also have a few people trained in DBT and CBT, which are really the only tier 3 evidence-based proven methods for schools, for students. So, but they're using that, and Elizabeth is teaching that 9th grade, co-teaching that 9th grade social emotional learning, and she has a ton of training in those areas, so she's using those. We did an orientation, a 3-day orientation with all of the 9th graders. They all have a case manager. They some of them are doing some summer, either remote school or in-person summer school. We do a weekly meeting for the 9th graders, where we go through every student and talk about progress. And then we do a PDSA, which is plan, do, study, act. cycles, that's every 6 weeks, and that is led by OSPI and Center for Teaching Excellence. And we get on a conference call every 6 weeks and look at our data and then kind of look at every cycle. We have to create a new goal based on the data that we have. So we've been looking through that, and it's been a huge learning experience, and just gotten us to really think about what we're doing and why we're doing it, how we're doing those things. A decreased dropout rates. So we've increased our course and program offerings. I guess I called it remote, and I need to change it to flexible learning option because it makes it much easier for everyone. We are working really hard on shifting to standards-based curriculum and courses, and then using UDL, so Universal Design for Learning, where they can change the method and how they're teaching for students. And we've expanded our club offerings to include FBLA, FFA, Crafty Club, and Service Learning Club that really works primarily with the food bank. The FBLA, we actually had 2 students go to state. One of them got first place in our region for computer science problem solving. That's pretty impressive. So, and we don't push students to graduate in 4 years if they're not ready. So we really, I know OSPI is looking more at the 4-year on-time graduation rate, but we really look more at the, okay, what about our 5-year rate? So our extended graduation rates. And I think ours are some of the highest in the state. Or I have this year. So anyways. And then our trauma-informed MTSS. So we have a TIL team. I know Mountain Way also has a TIL team. We meet once, sometimes twice a month. So our new interventions that we've added are co-constructed classroom norms. So every teacher is creating classroom norms with their class. So it's not them creating those norms, it's the students with the teachers. We also have embedded what's called a HOPE scale into the climate survey. I gave you guys a copy of kind of where we're at with our climate survey, and then the explanation from OSPI of the HOPE scale. This is what the scale that OSPI is suggesting that schools use. So it's only 6 questions, so we embedded it into our climate survey, and you can see the results on this piece of paper. So their scores went up. We're doing our 3rd one will be actually this. But you can see that actually in most areas the scores went up. The two that stayed the same were classroom effort and self-management. Social awareness is the only one that went down, which I really, that's interesting. And then on the bottom, it shows you in real time, so the time the students did the survey. We used the last one. This is what they felt were, these are the things that they felt were really impacting their school. So, and I can send you guys a link to that survey if you want to look at it. We had a survey called Panorama, and it was pretty expensive. So we basically most of the same questions and then added the whole scale. Some of the questions out. So that's the survey, same survey we've been using for several years. So we can compare year to year, quarter to quarter, and that sort of thing. And I do have more data on the 9th grade program, but it's not pretty. It's not like a pretty chart. This one, but if you would like it, I do have a copy of it. Then this is our SBAC goal, but we don't know how we're going to get towards that. And the map goal are MAPS testing is very tricky in our program. I did find one other alternative school in the state that does it. But they only do it once a year, we do it 3 times a year, so. It's just really tricky to get kids to do testing and testing and testing and testing when they have all these other things going on in their lives, and it takes a lot of time. So we have to change the schedule, which isn't very trauma informed and stuff. I mean, it's rough, not gonna lie. Okay, and then our climate and culture, you can kind of see some of the things that we've done up there. And then prom, we had almost 150 people participate in the prom this year. So it was awesome. It was at the Grange and they gave it to us for free. One of our teachers DJ'd, so low cost. It was great. Most of the staff attended. Yeah. Questions?
Okay, I can kick off. Just out of curiosity, I know you mentioned this doesn't have open doors. How do you know the current enrollment of open doors?
58 students. We had 17 GEDs so far this year,
Okay.
which we only had 8 last year, so that's awesome. So in open door, students can earn their GED and stay and work towards their diploma, because it's more of a transition, like it's a dropout re-engagement, right? But what the legislator and OSPI designed, I was on the team that designed open doors program, so for the state, so it's really more of a let's help these kids transition to jobs so that they're contributing members of society.
Okay.
That's really good.
Okay. The increase in dropout rates. So I guess I'm just wondering, when you're looking at that, when it sounded like there was a goal to reduce it year over year. So I guess I'm curious, what specifically was the plan to reduce that? Why did that not work? And then what's the new plan going forward?
Plan to reduce it. Well, okay, so because it was back, right? So it was the year 21-22. Our plan was to do more outreach, like case management, like out to go get kids that are not showing up, like they go get kids. We did have, honestly, we had trouble with getting kids because we only have 2. So that can be difficult sometimes. I don't think we realized that COVID was going down on the mental health of our students. And so we were writing the goals, wanting these things to happen, but the anxiety levels of students have gone through the roof. And so just to get some of the students have a conversation can be difficult.
Yeah. And so then I guess going forward, if hypothetically speaking, not understanding or not accounting for the effect that COVID had on students, so then like this next year or continuing through this year, how are we mitigating that and making sure that we're tackling at least that? And then if that doesn't work, then obviously then we need to find something else. But
so the case management for open doors works really, really well. And one of the things we implemented in the 9th grade academy grant was case management. And then we're like, wow, this seems to work pretty effectively. So we now have 2 case managers. One really is for the remote program. Well, we have 3, 1 for open doors, 1 for remote, 1 for Crossroads in person. And so that's one of the ways we're doing it. We also increased classes. Our dropout rate for boys is much higher than girls. We didn't put that in the goal this year because gender is fluid, right? So it upset people to have that be part of the goal because some of our kids changed it. They changed their genders, so that made it a little difficult. But we still struggle with offering courses that boys are highly engaged in. And I think a lot of that is space, honestly.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the case management, so those are individuals that are actually proactively reaching out to individuals, engaging with them, trying to get them. That's something that is increased or elevated from years past.
Yes.
Okay. And then two more things. One, I want to make sure I understood this. So did you say that the top 5 wanderers effectively get more of an opportunity to leave?
No,
Or like, how
less.
does that? Okay, so how does that pass work? Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to get too much, and I was just trying to wrap my head
They
around it.
get like a certain number a day of classes, like
Mhm.
you're gonna look at how often they were out, but typically it's about 2 a day. And
Okay,
they can only leave then 2 classes during the school
Okay.
rather than every class. Oh, I have to go back. You know,
gotcha,
so-
okay,
in order for them to go to the restroom, they need to present their.
gotcha, okay. I was picturing like leaving the campus or the building and
Oh.
like, wow, we're just giving them. Okay, no, that makes much more sense.
Mhm.
And then, so I really like the climate survey. I guess my only press and my outrageous ask to you is there a reason why it isn't administered more?
It's pretty long, so we do it 3 times a year.
Okay.
We do fall, winter, spring. And our student, between testing and surveying, it's pretty long. So, I mean,
Yeah,
the more data we have on it, I feel like the better. The other thing that we can do with this, and
Okay,
have done, especially once we
That's not
look at this oak scale,
mhm,
we can go into individual students, right? And see, like, it's not like an anonymous survey, so we can go into individual students and see where they're at. So their hope scale scores reduce significantly. That means there's trouble. Right?
Okay,
There's,
yeah.
so that's one of the ways. So we use it as a tool also to intervene with students who may
okay.
be struggling.
Yeah, one thing that I was thinking of, because I don't know, like if I'm looking at, at least the scale, and I don't know how many questions you typically seek for, but like within my organization, for instance, every day we do this thing called connections. And so literally every day when you log into your computer, and so I'm thinking of something of like, you already have the check-in system, right, where they have to come in, where just a single question pops up every single day that they come in. And for them to be able to respond to that question as they're checking in. So then there's no formal survey that they get, but you're collecting data throughout the year. You're collecting, and that same, you could have one question in September, and you could have that same question in December, that same question again as like check-ins throughout. So just a thought, if that's possible to integrate to the check-in somehow.
Well, I think we could probably do that in Check and Connect.
Okay.
Because they have that class for 20 minutes a day.
Mhm.
I love that idea. I
Okay,
think that's really great. Thank you.
yeah, absolutely.
Are you taking note?
So you got
Yeah, that's all I have.
Director Veach had to step out, so she'll be back. I'll run the meeting for a second. Bridget, I always feel like I need to say disclaimer, but specifically, obviously, you know that the closest thing I have to a daughter goes to your school, and at Crossroads, she's struggling mightily at the high school, and at Crossroads, she found her people, her place. You guys were able to connect with her, and she graduates this year, and couldn't be. And I know you've known her in her entire life as well. So I have a deep real world understanding of what it is that you guys do and the magic that you guys do. My job is to ask touch questions. So I guess I just say that to say that don't let anything let you think that I don't believe in what you guys do and have seen it for sure. I just wanted to lean in a little bit more in the dropout rate and stuff, just because as I was looking at the goals and stuff earlier today, obviously the 21-22 goals that you gave, had, what the goal was, they were SMARTY goals, right? So what the goal is, your activities, your time frame, who's going to lead it, your resources, how you're going to measure it and stuff like that. So, so there's real kind of like, here's what we're going to do, here's how long it's going to take, here's how we're going to judge success and stuff like that. So, in a perfect world, missing your goals shouldn't be a surprise, right? Because you're constantly measuring, you're constantly adjusting, you're constantly revising what you're doing. And I'm not saying that you said that, but I obviously there was a miss there. I guess walking out of this building or walking out of this room as you have these new SMARTY goals,
like, how are you monitoring those things? How are you making sure that it's, it's held, at the top of mind for everybody? How are you adjusting? Because and certainly Crossroads wasn't the only one, we've also, had some other buildings that have struggled on a couple of their goals. And I guess what I'm saying to say all of that is convince me that like you have the tools or whatever you need in place this time to be able to meet the goal that you missed last, and feels like it was maybe a little bit of a surprise, which means to me, and again, tell me I'm wrong, that maybe you weren't necessarily as leaned in on it as you should have been or could have been, I guess is probably a better way to say it, so that you were doing that evaluation, constant adjustment, those types of things.
So we have a monthly meeting where we go through every student. So every student at Crossroads is on what's called a written student learning plan. And we have to evaluate their progress monthly, right? So satisfactory or unsatisfactory progress. And if they're unsatisfactory, we have to do interventions. Once we have 3 unsatisfactory progress in a year, we're supposed to find another program. So those options were limited, right? We had open doors, or we have them return to their home school, and most alternative programs have students return to their home school at that point, right? Well, that's been really difficult for us with Lake Stevens. It's been actually a nightmare. Like, for us to get a student back to Lake Stevens School District does not work about 97% of the time. And our contract is up with them this year, so I'm looking over at Dr. M and thinking, I really hope we can shift some of that work. So that's part of it. I think that is, like, our interventions were limited. So creating the more fluid flow program where kids can do hybrid and be in both spots. I'm hoping that helps, but we do want, so that month, like at the end of the month, we have a student who's missed 20 days, right? We have to drop them, but that doesn't mean we haven't done a billion other, they've already had several interventions, I guess. One of the things that we're doing differently this year is the Becca Bill. So we, in the past, we just really haven't been following the process for the Becca Bill, but we as a district are focusing on attendance, and they hire, that was part of Kevin's role, was helping us do the court appearances and those sort of things. So we've started the community truancy board. We've had, I think it's 80, we invited over 80 students to the community truancy board. So part of it is the dropout is they miss 20 days and they get dropped, right? Well, they miss 20 days, they get dropped. Like, we just had a student missed 20 days, got dropped, went to court for Becca. We had 2 counselors go out to the house, do like a in-person intervention with that student, and now he's back in school. So that's one of the things that we really weren't tracking before, and we're being very diligent with it. And that's, having extra bodies, having a little bit of case management. It's a big job for us because our attendance rate has gone from, it was 30% to 38% this year. So I'm happy about that. But so I think attendance, they get out of the habit of going to school.
Can I ask a follow-up question, just because I didn't understand what you were saying earlier with your first point about nightmare. So could you just give me a little bit more detail on that? So you're saying that if a student isn't attending their home district is Lake Stevens, they're here in Crossroads, back to Lake Stevens was a night.
So right, we did develop a process, but it's a very long process to return them, for them to return to their home school. Now Lake Stevens also has changed their model and hired a director for alternative learning. So she's not, before it was a principal, and she was trying to do a couple different things. So now they have a director for alternative learning, and she actually has been very helpful this year and has been trying to, explain to to the admin there that this is part of what ALE means. If they're not doing what they need to do, the students need to come back to school there. So
So I'll put it in my own words because this is new information. So you're saying that if a Lake Stevens home student is here in our district, and obviously they're essentially a choice transfer. I mean, obviously we have a cooperative agreement, but they're essentially a choice transfer. Kind of. I know there's some gray area there because we have a cooperative agreement, stuff like that. But you know, the way the law is, the Lake Stevens is their home district. That's where they live. And so we'll have them in our program and it's just not working out for whatever reason. It's just not working out. So obviously at that point, we're trying to transition them back to their home district. And you're telling me Lake Stevens is shaking their head no and saying no? How can they? That's not legal. They can't do that. That's their home district. Am I taking crazy pills right now, Dr. M?
I think,
I mean, I don't want to get too in the weeds. You've got kind of that, you're getting in the weeds look, Carl, but my head is going to explode right now if that's what's going on.
I would say that what Bridget said.
I will attend the next Lake Stevens board meeting and I will say that in public comment if that's what's happening.
I will say the change in leadership that there is going to be a positive thing for us. We met with them today and feel like we're going to have a good 23-24 school year. And we have an agreement that we need to work on. And but like I said, they know there need to be some concessions. And so we've started that conversation.
But is that even a concession? They're not.
I'm not talking about necessarily that. There are some other contract things that we're working on.
Okay. So I never want to get in your lane, but what I'm hearing is don't worry about it, Carl. We got it figured out for 23-24. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, our contract has to be negotiated this summer. And again, we have some new people and
I mean, do we have, I promise I will stop shortly, but do we have something in the contract that says there's no take back fees that we, because if we did put that in front of me and I will never sign that ever again, is that really what we have? Like,
Yeah, that's.
I mean, that's, I don't know.
well, I don't know the degree of this conflict of 97% nightmare, but you know, I know there have been a couple situations that you know.
And the students that have gone back there, just so you guys know, because during the summer, once they miss 20 days, we drop them. Then they can go back to Lake Stevens the next following school year, right? Because anybody can register there. Every one of them is in a special school. Yeah. So like NRLC, Overlake.
So just out of curiosity, what percentage of your enrollment do you think is Lake Stevens students? Just percentage, just rough percentage.
It used to be a third, so 33. I think it's higher now. I bet you we're close to 40.
Or maybe higher.
And the 200 students are. There's 200 students in Crossroads and then 50 some in Open Doors, right?
219 at Crossroads. Yeah. Open Doors is not part of the agreement.
Right.
But yeah.
But yeah, so I'm just thinking of as we're looking at there, because I picture there's 250 students within this building roughly. And so 219 are in Crossroads, so 40% that we're looking at roughly 100 students.
I think it's about close to 80. So,
Okay,
and
so-
it gets a little tricky too because of McKinney, right? So they start, our McKinney kids, regardless of where they come from, they start floating around to each other's homes. So then the Granite, Lake Stevens thing really gets finished.
Why?
So just one more, my wife always makes fun of me. I should never say one more question because then I say that 4 more times. An additional follow-up question, and I don't want to take us to the weeds, but just out of curiosity, if we didn't come to an agreement with Lake Stevens on this contract coming up for negotiations, does that mean that 40% of students would then return to Lake Stevens? Or,
Right, unless we decide to do choice transfers. We would be out of that co-op, then
that specific co-op, I know we have other cooperative agreements with them. Would it be the entire co-op or just that co-op?
the,
The Crossroads.
Just
Co-op. So not like the buses and the other co-ops that we have.
But the bus, like they bus their kids here. So I think we would have some kids that would stay here, but you know, we would lose the busing, we would lose a counselor position because they pay for a counselor. I mean, they do some great things for help us.
Mhm.
And honestly, like it used to be tough to get kids back to Grand Falls High School. We've got a pretty good working relationship with the principals right now. And while I was gone, I know 2 kids went back because they had been unsatisfactory. So I'm not sure how they're doing there now. I don't think they're doing well, but
Um, okay, so, is the, Carl, don't worry about it. We got a handle for 23, 24. Like, is that, or I guess, what can the board do to have a voice in this? Do you need the board to have a voice in this or just, and then I'll get off of this point. I have other questions, but obviously I'm processing this in real time right now. And I have lots of thoughts, but I'm holding them all inside.
right. I know, like we did, it'll be now 4 years ago when we did the current agreement. And, you know, we had Bridget involved in that. We are shooting for some times to meet in late June after school is over, and we'll sit down and I'll just say, I know the concerns and I feel like I can represent the board on some of those concerns. And if we want to have some conversation offline, that would.
Yeah, because to me, I mean, this is unconscionable, like, but I won't go on a tirade about that. Okay, all right, so bringing us back on track, sorry. So I guess just what I wanted to feel like is you feel like now with the dropout percentage, you know, with all of the factors involved, that you have the tools or you have what you need now to manage, track, adjust, and achieve the goal. Because if there's something in the tool set that you don't have, like, let's talk about that. What do you need? What do you?
the piece we don't have in the tool set is enough mental health. It's enough mental health counseling, and I don't know that that even exists. Like, we called agencies to talk about contracting because, you know, I can not so bad at writing grants, right? But there are not enough therapists out there. There aren't, like, so even if we wrote a grant and we're able to pay for it, it would be very, very difficult. But that it feels like a mental health unit. I mean, it really does. Every day. Not the whole school, but the mental health concerns are very real, and I don't know that people really understand it. I don't know if I understand it. Because I've never seen anything like it, and I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah. So without that mental health, do you think that you can't get that? And I'm specifically talking about Smarty Goal 2. Do you feel like you're not going to be able to hit that Smarty Goal 2? Or is it, hey, I feel like I have the tools to meet that, but you know, there's some danger if I don't have that extra mental health piece? I guess I'm just trying to figure out.
That's what I think. I mean, we've implemented new things, right? We have the case management. We have we're really working hard on the Becca stuff. Greg is running around doing these community truancy boards pretty regular. Like, we have one on the last Friday of every month. And then, I mean, we're doing some things differently to try and bolster that, but until we get to because we do monitor it a little bit, but there's a lot of things that go into that rate. And remember that's like more, they're looking at like on time. A lot of our kids might drop out for a little while and then they come back to open doors. So they're counting on our dropout rate, but then a year later they're in open doors getting a sorry, earning their GED or earning their diploma. So it's really hard looking at that data for us because we do have several people.
Yeah. So, and I promise I'm not trying to belabor the point. So is it I feel pretty good about it. There's some challenges with the mental health piece. But you feel, you've got, again, the tools, the metrics, the tracking in place to really kind of grab a hold of that. Or is it, without that mental health, I really don't feel like we're going to get there. Because I guess I'll even get to the end of why I'm bringing that up. Because I would say then, okay, well, let's say that you don't have that mental health piece. What is achievable? If it's not the decrease by 8%, then what is achievable without the mental health piece and stuff? I guess I just want to have something in here that everybody feels like they can do. They've got the tools, all of that stuff. So that's why I'm asking. I promise I'm not trying to belabor them
No,
or back you into a corner or anything like that.
I think like 5% is probably achievable. I mean, I think the 8% is achievable. I do. I think we're working really hard and I think we'll get there.
Yeah.
But I can't make any guarantees, especially when it's students who come to us for 3 days.
Yeah.
If we can get students to come in and get the relationship going with them.
Oh, you mean like 3 days and then they'll drop out?
It's like students who just show up because they want to go to school and then we don't see them. Those are the tough ones. But our students that we have relationships with, they stick around.
Are those Lake Stephen students, out of curiosity?
They're both. Sorry.
Okay.
I mean, if you look, the 9th grade, I didn't give you, so our 9th grader that came in, we have 3 that dropped out from this district that had already dropped out of school, and 1 from Lake Stevens and 1 from other districts. So coming into high school, we're talking 5 kids that had already dropped out before they started. So.
This I really do feel like is the last question. Obviously your SMART goal from 21-22 was the dual credit CTE, which I thought was a great goal. Obviously, the outcomes weren't what we were hoping for, and I noticed that wasn't one of your goals for this year. What are your thoughts there? Why was that included? Is that something that you're still trying to do, and you have your own personal goal for that? Just talk me through that, if you don't mind.
Yes, it is something that we're working on and trying to do and trying to get that. That's part of why we want to get it. So I don't know if it's clerical or if it's actual, like the students just didn't know, because we know more than 17% of our students took dual credit classes, but they have to earn a year better in that class. So, and they have to sign up. So I don't know if the teacher didn't, push the signups and they, you know what I mean? I don't know if it was the issue and it was only the kids that were super duper motivated that did it, or if it was, I'm just not sure she's not here anymore. So it's hard for me to know. And I honestly, I feel like, CTE pathways and our kids they have trouble passing the SBAC, right? So they're going to have to use the CTE pathways, and the more we can get dual credits, they already have credits going in, especially for our kids who, many of them are first generation college kids. Their likelihood of going and they already have a credit of a class for the year better. I feel like that's gonna make them more interested in going to college, because many of them have a really low self-esteem, self-efficacy, those sorts of things. So if they know they've already earned a college credit and they have a 3-point or better, right? And right now we have 3 classes that they could earn college credits in. That's a big deal.
It is. And it might be the reason I ask is, it might be talking with my daughter, when you look at it and you're like, well, you've already got 8 college credits. Like, why don't you just go and finish and get your AA or something like that, right? It just kind of makes that like, that's not a whole lot of work more that you have to do. I just think it's a great thing to just kind of like, oh, I feel like I can do this. And I know you're passionate about it too. So I know I'm preaching to the choir here. I guess I just want to make sure that that's something that's still like, what can I do to support you to really, to do that and to, be able to get, not saying you're not on track, but to make that, I guess, a personal goal, not a SMARTY goal, if you get what I'm saying.
We'll be back on our school plan next year.
Okay.
Just so you know,
Yeah.
that will be back on that, because looking back, I maybe shouldn't have taken it. Probably shouldn't have taken it up. I don't like not achieving my goal.
Yeah.
So,
And hopefully you don't feel like I'm beating you up.
No,
my
I'm-
job's to ask hard questions. Okay. That's all I've got.
Thank you for excusing me. My daughter left a few days ago and this was her first time calling me. And in a few days, she flew across the country and I kept having to reject her call and it was breaking my heart. So thanks for giving me just a few minutes to make sure she's okay. I did actually have several questions, but because I didn't hear the answers to the other questions, I'll just send you an email with the questions I wrote down because I reviewed or I'll ask these guys and then send you the rest of them. So I appreciate the presentation and the goals that you put together but I heard what you were saying about dropout rate and dual credit. I did have questions about dual credit and it sounds like the person that would tell you if there was a discrepancy isn't here anymore. Is that what I understand?
right?
Yeah.
She retired, so,
So now
but I'll put it back.
you have a plan to get them trained this summer and to do whatever, push the signups or whatever. I guess I did have just one question. There was a comment on that about something about student like paying for dual credit. Are we charging the students and is one of the barriers that the students can't pay the fee?
The college charges them and that will never be a barrier in Crossroads.
Okay,
I mean,
So I
we'll
just-
do whatever. we
I
do.
saw that was in there as something and I just wanted to know if like,
I think some legislation just came out where they
Okay.
changed, I think
yeah,
that's different.
that's exactly what I was thinking was, didn't we just have a thing where
Oh,
we
really? 'Cause
said,
I just looked at it and it was $50 per credit, but honestly, like, we can use, right now, we have grant money that we can use, and if worse comes to worse, I think most of our staff would pitch in, or I'll just call them.
I will go on public record. I will write a check. No problem.
all right, thank you,
Thank you.
appreciate it, thank you. Next, the business report prepared by Marshall Cruz. Questions?
I just reported out kind of the normal report every month. One thing I did add, I wanted to point out is enrollment now has special ed numbers.
Yeah.
And the trend for the year. That's the one change I did add so that you guys can kind of see what we're facing as a district, how it's going up every month is just increasing. And so we'll keep that piece on the enrollment section to help report out all through next year even, so that it'll just be a part of the enrollment report from now on.
I did notice the projection at 2.5% now.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah, we,
700,000.
we have nowhere to pay for the 1.5 million, it's maybe 1.6. So it's got to come from trying to shift as much other program money towards special ed or fund balance. And we're not really able to. Mid-year, it's difficult to shift money from basic ed to special ed because you have contracts in place for staff. You're seeing it continue to increase. We're just having a really hard time getting in front of the extra special ed costs and the increasing special ed enrollment.
So that was where my question kind of laid is, so when I look at the April report versus the May report, the forecast shows 1.7 million in the fund at a 4.4%, as Director Veach was saying. And within a month, it's dropped by $700,000. It seems like previously in April, there was an understanding that we had issues with, so was that not forecasted?
Right, I do a big forecast kind of every 2 or 3 months. Where
Okay,
I go and I really crank the numbers, load the apportionment report, do projections of where our apportionment is going to be, do projections of where our expenditures is going to be. But we've probably gained 30 special ed kids since March. I mean, it's just a never-ending climb of special ed right now, and it's hire a one-on-one, hire a one-on-one, hire a one-on-one, and it's all needed, but we just can't, as a district, when 90% of our spending is in salaries, We've got these contracts in place. It's really difficult mid-year or 2/3 of the way to the year to pivot. And so we're doing our best to pivot for next year and, moving $1.5 million of basically basic ed money to support special ed next year. And honestly, trying to go bigger because we don't know where the end of the program is, where the end of what the real number is it 23%, 25%? Just don't know.
Yeah. I guess this, let me see, project. I'm just nervous because we cut it by 35-ish% or 40% or so. And I'm just nervous to get to our like singular July meeting and come to find that we have $100,000.
Well, as we get
Right, like-
closer to the end of the year, there's less unknown. Because we're not gonna be adding students after, June's our last count.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna be adding services, we're not gonna be. The payroll costs will start going down in June.
Okay.
I mean, yes and no, though. I'm not disagreeing with you, Marshall. I guess I'm just saying, but and if for some reason safety net doesn't come in like
Absolutely.
what we expect or something along those lines, that is, if that's 500,000 less to Director Ledoux's point, that's 500,000 less than we have baked in the budget. And we've talked ad nauseum about, I was like, let's not put safety net in there because what if we don't get it? But obviously, if we didn't, then we wouldn't have a balanced budget. We're forced to. But if for some reason, we asked the state to help recoup our costs for 1.5 or whatever, and they only give us $1 million, that's going to be very, very, very bad. And that is unexpected. And I'm not sure what you do there. And they can reject for clerical errors. They can reject
There's
for.
less of that now. They've kind of made an intent statement and changed some wordings of the laws that if our intent was correct, clerical errors won't disqualify us. It's really if we're providing services that aren't in the IEP, that's where we can't claim those services. I guess that is a clerical error, but it's not the kind of clerical errors that used to get us on.
Yeah. Well, I guess my point is we spent the money, right? We did the thing, we spent the money. We're asking for a reimbursement and I don't believe that's in the IEP or specifically that doesn't say in the IEP. We've had conversations like that I've seen before. They could reject that cost. Tell me I'm wrong, right?
Not wrong. And honestly, the worst thing for getting reimbursed from the state is adding paras and overload, because those things, like if you add a para, especially halfway through the year, it's going to be $28,000 or so. You have to spend 37 before you can get any safety net back. So all these things that we're adding were very expensive. We're not getting any safety net for them because it doesn't reach that threshold. We have to spend $37,000 on a student before we can claim anything above that for safety net.
Remind me, how much safety net do we have in here? I was trying to find it baked in.
I believe I had $1 million or 900,000 in safety net, and I think I had $200,000 in community impact. And we're asking for more than that.
So tell me, you just said, and I was writing notes, the two things it was adding the para and something else that were the most difficult to recoup.
So as we increase caseload, we start paying our special ed teachers overload.
Okay.
And none of that can be claimed for safety net. And when we add a para, that's really the para would have to be with us for the entire school year for us to claim maybe $10,000 of their salary, and then we'd have to pay $37,000 first.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Honestly, if all the state did was get rid of the arbitrary percentage that we're allowed to claim, there wouldn't be a problem. Safety net would solve the really high need stuff. The extra funding we get per student would solve that middle ground stuff. There would be no problem here at all. But it's that arbitrary cap that they put on that just It's really hard to get around.
So I promise I'm not trying to be Chicken Little here. And I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but just to, I guess, even double down more on Director Ledoux's part. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, to a certain extent, we have halted all spending, additional spending, cut back, right? Like we've ratcheted down fairly tightly, right?
Yes.
And so with that, in the matter of a month, we've dropped what, $500,000, $700,000, right?
Last real forecast was probably 2 months ago, but yeah.
So I guess my point is that our crunching down on expenses is not going to outpace our costs in this regard, right? Like we won't be able to turn the wrench hard enough, right? So that drops low enough to kind of keep pace with the increasing costs that we have there.
I guess I'll say it takes time to turn the Titanic. And there's already
Horrible analogy. The Titanic sunk and everyone died, right?
turn a bus.
Yeah.
About that.
Yeah, that's better. I like that. Yeah.
You're committed to some things that you can't uncommit from. You can stop going forward, but there's things that you're committed to that you haven't paid yet that take a while to get through the system.
So you're saying that it's going to catch up at some point? Is that your point?
I
Or
think we've caught up and we are really ratcheted down on spending, although.
so you would say that we're shredding.
We're still 90% salaries and benefits.
So you're saying that the next projected budget, you wouldn't anticipate more of that fund balance being eked away? That you would.
I'm gonna hold at $1 million until the end of the year, and it'll depend on some things. It'll depend on safety net. It'll depend on our special ed isn't going to impact us shouldn't impact us anymore this year because it's so late in the school year. We're halfway through May almost. If we have newly identified students or students that move in, that impact's gonna be pretty minimal for the rest of the school year. So I feel comfortable with that number. I feel comfortable that we've got a good plan in place to reduce expenditures next year. I feel comfortable that as we look at the funding models, that there'll be some favorable things for us in that too. The calculators aren't out yet, but as soon as they are, I'll be reporting to the board on that.
Yeah, and Carl, for some clarity, so January, February, March, and April had a $1.7 million projection, and then it dropped to 1 million. December had a $2.039 million projection. So we're looking, $120,000 a month in reduction over across that time. But so it's not a $700,000 month over month, but still, and I can't recall exactly when all our special sessions have occurred and we kind of did the clamp down.
2 minutes.
Okay.
One more quick comment. Audit's going really well. They're looking to do the exit conference maybe towards the end of May.
Okay, you're talking the financial audit.
Yeah, all things audit. Not the special program audit that we did.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. And if you have additional questions for Marshall, feel free to reach out. He's quick to respond. We have our first interview at 7 o'clock, so we must have, we have exactly 60 seconds. So I think he's out in the hall. Okay. We want to turn the lights on for this.
So I'll ask him.
Oh,
Do you want the lights?
I'm okay.
No, I just wondered if the camera, I guess the camera's picking it up all right, so good enough.
You say the camera adds 10 pounds. I think it adds 3 inches to my forehead.
Every time I turn around and look at myself, I'm like, I'm holding it together pretty good.
Yes, you are.
I don't. Yeah, he's.
Handshaking.
Yeah.
Okay. You got you too.
Oh, thanks for asking. I appreciate that. That's always awkward nowadays. Like,
Bill.
I have the other
Yeah, this-
online.
Yeah, I don't.
You guys.
Of what to do. Yes, please.
So, Tom, Carl, Vice Chair, just a couple of things. So obviously we have a time slot of 7 to 7:20. So kind of what we were hoping about is that you are hoping is that you could just kind of walk us through your proposal, the high points for it. And then if you don't mind, just give us, a little bit of time at the end for some clarification questions or anything like that. But the floor is yours, my friend.
Okay, my name's Tom Rockefeller. I'm a 41-year educator in the state of Washington, retired 3.5 years ago. Have worked for Northwest Leadership Associates. And I'm the lead associate or the CEO, so I write proposals and I'm involved in some too. We have about 11, anywhere from 11 to 14 people that work for us, depending on how many searches we do. Since the last 22 years, we've done, at the end of this year, will be about 365 searches that we've done. Last year was extremely busy. We did 24 searches in the state of Washington, a couple others out of state. And then we also do some assistant superintendent searches. All of the associates that work are all retired superintendents with the exception of one. She's an assistant superintendent that worked for ESD 112, and she works with us on ESD proposals and searches. But we've had a lot of success. I think that we figured about 65% of the districts in the state at one time or another. And we've had some of them because of the length of time that we've been operating, that we actually worked for them 3 or 4 times. This year we're involved in 11 searches right now that are either finishing off or close to being finished off. And we do have 2 or 3 in the initial stages that we're negotiating about next year. So we've been around all of the associates except one has been affiliated with or still part of a professional preparation program, whether it's Eastern, Western, WSU, Gonzaga. And so one of the strengths and people who try to get to work with us are people that know people and very well connected. A lot of experience with our superintendent retirees that are working, our consultants now. A really good group of people, real dedicated. I would like to say I think that they are hard workers and they'll do a good job for you. They'll do a good job for you. And we all do work together. There'll be 2 consultants usually is what we do on the team. Mark and Wayne Robertson, they kind of do the northwest part of the state, and they'll be working, but we all are included in the process by helping find candidates. We have a 12-step process that comes down to 4 phases. The first one is preparing for the search. For instance, if we were hired tomorrow, probably we usually try to meet with the board within a week to 2 weeks. And in there, we establish all the logistical issues, the connection issues, who we're going to work with, whether it's a liaison with the district or it's a board, superintendent, whoever that we can connect back and forth with. And there's several reasons for that. One of the things that we do is a pretty extensive salary survey. And so we have to ask for certain documents from the district, and then we start building from there. The salary survey, I know that was one of the things specific to your RFP. It's something that we work with the ESDs. They usually have a pretty comprehensive salary review that they do every year. And the good part about that is they usually do components of the salary, not just the wage. They also do the buyback days, vacation days, those kinds of things, so that we can build a good contract. That is important to us now because it's the first of the year is when the new law came into effect and we have to post at least a salary range on all of our brochures. But that preparation piece, what we'll do in that first, like I say, the first part of this is to set up the official timeline. And all this can be adjusted, all can be moved, and it's all flexible as opposed to, and who we connect with. And then we start in by having focus groups in the school district, interviewing the board individually, reviewing information from surveys that you have done in-house from your community, and reviewing other documents. And what we'll do is when we come in and work with all the different stakeholders and different groups, and we're looking for three or four things. The first one is the selling point. And we come in and talk with people about what's good about Grand Falls, what is good about the district and the community, to help put that in that brochure that we send out to draw people in. And then we also look for the professional qualifications and personal qualifications that the board is looking for. Somebody who is outgoing, somebody that likes to, be go to concerts, go to ball games, things like that, so that we get a good match. And then with the board, mostly we develop the challenges and opportunities. And this is we feel it's a pretty important part of the process to have when we pass out the applications or the application package to the brochure. It states those challenges and opportunities that the district has. Most everybody's had issues with money, and budgets. And it allows, or what we request is each one of the candidates write 4 to 5 on 4 to 5 of these challenges and opportunities. So it gives you, when you get down to the finals or get down to the preliminary, it lets you read what they think that they can do in their background, and so it gives you a good explanation there. But that the first phase is it's up, and we really start moving. We would put a pre-announcement within a few days on all the major websites, and we'd send out a pre-notification, and we have about 3,500 organizations, people, and professional development connections that we send this out to, that something is coming open, and start notifying us. The second phase is recruiting. This is what we think that we do very, very well. We have a couple, 3 layers here. The first one is the big, when we send it out, it goes, like I say, it goes to about 3,500 groups, people, individual. I mean, it's spread out to even university programs. Then we have some of us call it targeted group. Some of us we have different names with or different data within our own person that we keep. That I have about 120 people that I know of that I continually get a hold of, talk to, so that we can try and recruit them into the process. And then there's even a little step lower. We know people that want to be in the area and want to be in the region too. We do a lot of communicating so that we can get that right group of people to apply. And on a side note, I put in a proposal to get 15 to 20 highly qualified candidates. That doesn't mean that we won't get 30 or 40 applications or whatever. It's just that we were pretty good when we come in for the preliminaries. We'll have a stack. You're going to get anybody that applies. We never hold the letters back for their application, but we will say this group here meets your qualifications to the T. This group, there might be where you want some experience, maybe they don't have that, but they have a lot of potential, so we'll help you go through that with the preliminary piece. Once we select the candidates, another thing to consider, more and more districts are doing their preliminary interviews in executive session. And they're doing that because it's confidential up until you select the final 3 And that is, it really helped us in 2 different searches that we did this year because people were concerned about the board and others knowing they were willing to take it on once they got to the final, that they didn't want people knowing that they were out looking. So it'd be something that we need to talk about. But we'll come in, we'll help you work through to develop or develop 6 people you'd like to interview. We usually say 6. We think that's the most appropriate to go with. And through that, after they're selected, then and I want you to know, we take care of everything, all the calls of the people that are going to be interviewed, as well as the ones that aren't going to be interviewed. And we have a real specific way we do it, because nobody is out of the process until it's completely over. We just don't move the files forward. And we have had a few instances where, somebody has dropped out or they didn't want to be in it. So we work through that. And another piece that we do for you is we have all the documentation. We have sample questions that you like for the preliminaries. We really say that it's very, very important in preliminary interviews to make sure that you are asking all the same questions that, to each candidate. That's extremely important to do that. So there's a equal playing field, so to speak. And then once you select those candidates, then what we do is, or when we bring those candidates in, I want to go back. We ask for 4 references and 4 recommendations typically, and we call all those references. And we have a couple of people that work with us that really they enjoy doing that. Plus, we've got a pool that we keep together. They even follow up with side references, and many times a reference will give somebody else that they think you ought to talk to, which kind of gives you a little concern, but twice out or whatever. But we'll bring all the people in fully vetted, ready to go. And then from there, you get into your final interviews, whole different, situation, the way the questions you're going to ask, what you can do at that time. But we have all of the processes for the full day interview process. We have all the processes for the preliminary. And like I say, we take care of, once you decide who you want to interview, we take care of all of the paperwork and making sure that people are there on time and for the interview. I talked about the salary piece a little bit earlier, the salary survey. We also work with you to develop a contract. We like to have a contract completed so that the final 3 are signed off, so that you don't offer the contract to somebody or you offer the job and then they want to negotiate. We have all that pre-done and everybody signed off, so that once you offer it, they're ready to go. Again, I think that with the kind of background we have, this process that we have, if you look at the proposal with 4 stages, it defines exactly what we're going to do, what we're going to ask of you, what we need from you basically to move forward. I think that we have a situation with the people that we have in the process that we've become extremely effective at what we do. There are some, some side, issues or not concerns or anything, things that we want to talk to you about. We would probably be recommending sit down and really talk about your completion date, early December. And we've offered 2 calendars to look at. And if you want to go with December 14th, we might be advising that if you wait till after, like in January, what you do is you give people, especially superintendents, are giving them time to go through the mid-year evaluation. And that can work 2 ways. Somebody's thinking it's time for me to go, or somebody's, I've got a good evaluation, I can use that to get the job that I want. But it gives families time to sit down and go through that process over the winter break. And also it gives very busy professionals work on their applications.
5 minutes.
Okay. And work on, I have 5 more minutes.
Yeah, you're scheduled till 7:20 at 7:15,
Okay. And so anyway, then
including questions.
yeah, good. I'm good then.
So we can all just ask questions that you have, if it's all right. I've just got one right off of that real quick. How much of the process are you intending to do virtually? There's obviously some focus groups, some other things. Is there any part, or you're here?
No, that if you requested we do something virtually, but we do everything face to face.
Okay. And then just one more follow-up. Just talk me real quick through things that will cost extra money. Obviously, I know expenses, travel, stuff like that costs money, but let's say that, I don't know, we wanted to have a stakeholder meeting, with, the community or something like that, that's not, specifically named in here. And we said, hey, we really want, this is important. Is there an extra cost for those types of things?
No, as I put in here, we've decided a long time ago what we call them all inclusive and costs. We just put the cost down, and that's what we hold to, because we found out that sometimes we put 30 or 40% of the effort into getting things up and running, but other times it'd be 25. There are some districts that we're in 2 to 3 days plus working with the board. That's all just would be mileage, and both of the consultants are Marysville and Mount Vernon. Sort of close.
I got a couple others, but we don't have much time. So you guys, if you have questions, go ahead and jump in. I don't want to bogart the time.
Nothing on the top of my head.
I've got one more real quick then. So I was just going over your past searches on the last 2 years, and obviously I didn't go further back. And most of those districts, other than Rochester, are bigger than us. And so I guess I just real quick was curious. Obviously, we're a school district of a little over 2,000 or so. Do you feel like you guys are, suited to handle a small rural district like us, a smaller rural district like us?
Working with, well, I would say that there's half as many that we did last year that are in the last few years that are smaller. That 5-year summary that we put in here, if you take a look through that, again, like we're working with Mossy Rock, Grand Coulee, Toledo. There's another one that's slipping my mind right now, but we worked quite a few districts that would be in the size and
Lakewood.
and you ask, for the districts that are similar size or larger, that's why we put those down. Just I think we have a lot of experience with smaller schools, districts too. But yours is considered that 2,000 to 5,000 range.
2 minutes. Any additional questions?
Mark, just one follow-up. You said it sounded like you had some concern about the December timeline. And it sounded like maybe you were thinking we should be pushed out further to like January. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, and that it's really up to you if you want to do that. And it's not a major concern. It's just people, if you're, let's say you're looking for experience, a lot of it would depend on my qualifications. But if you have somebody that you're wanting people that already had superintendent experience, there can be some challenges with some people that, for lack of a better word, being lame duck from December to the end of the year kind of thing. But we've done early searches. That it's just that we feel we might need a bigger pool of qualified people.
So it looks like you're saying like February is when we would offer the contract.
January, February.
Okay. But obviously getting out early, kind of like we are, and thank goodness we have Dr. Middleton, who's really given us a good amount of time we really wanted to maximize that to the best of our effort to look, at why, I mean, we're doing the right thing, right? I mean, and going out early.
Like I say, it would be just through our experience, it would probably widen the window a little bit for people to make up their mind. And we spend a lot of time on phone with people that are going back and forth about whether they should or shouldn't.
Yeah.
Do it. And I just think that might help. But it really, we're very flexible on what you want. That's what we'll work with. It isn't our search, it's yours, and we work for you.
I think that's time.
Yes, that is time. All right.
Okay.
I'd like to thank you very much for coming and thank you.
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
each-
I
Thank you
think.
for having us. Thank you for having us.
Oh, I didn't know there was somebody on the
No, I
phone.
didn't know either.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Thank
didn't
you.
realize-
Disembodied voice on the phone.
There, I just didn't notice it. 'cause
Oh, now I
was
see you.
looking over
Okay.
here. I-
Yeah, this is Mark Van. I would help out with the search. I'm currently in Baton Rouge, Louisiana on a cruise ship. So, but I certainly don't plan on being there this fall when we would start up the search. We just completed Lakewood, and I suggest you give Sandy Gotts, the board president, there a call. We had 28 applicants for that job. It's one of the best pools we've had. And it's a very similar size district, as you know, to you guys. And we just think that there are some really good candidates out there that probably are going to make their decision whether they apply for jobs next year, probably after the first of the year, after the winter break. That's what our experience shows. But certainly, like Tom said, we can be flexible.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Yeah,
Thank you for,
Thank you.
thank you for joining us from your cruise.
Okay. Have a good meeting.
Down the
Yes.
session. Absolutely. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Hey, no problem.
Thank you. I feel bad that I didn't realize it's up there.
I didn't either. That's why I jumped.
All right. We have 3 minutes. We want to we get a 3-minute break.
You're running the show. You do whatever you want.
I'm looking at you guys. Do you need a 3-minute break?
I do not.
Okay.
There's not much I can do in 3
Okay.
minutes.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, we'll let you know. How about
I
that?
think it's getting darker. I think we need to at some point turn on the
Yeah,
lights.
I was gonna say that he's like.
Feels like
fading
it feels
into
like
darkness.
feels like a camp out.
It's gonna get a flashlight. Actually, we're the ones that probably look like we have the flashlight face.
From our computer.
I didn't think about that, but yeah, it's getting darker. I was trying to read the questions here and I'm going through them and I'm like, I'm to hold them up to the screen to see. Just kidding. Not that bad. Oh. I open the next one. I won't run out.
They had some set up where if they spoke, they should have warmed up. That should, so
Oh, yeah, you had to follow one.
I had to double click.
Yeah.
Because they should have warmed up on there, so. There's still only one
Yeah, we're gonna need someone for a job.
attendance.
You're about to. Listen. Oh, sorry. Oh. So did you know Brady? They used to have Brady was part of hiring Dr. Middleton in the initial stages. Not at the final, but at the initial stages. So we were kind of looking at, there was some student advising going on there. Right. So,
I have both in the attendees. Do you want me to start asking them to join?
Yes.
yeah. Oh, we're hiring a new superintendent. I'm gonna take this one too, since you can be heard. You're speaking away. Go ahead.
Is it time? It is time. Hello. My name's Carl.
Hi.
I'm vice chair, and I just wanted to thank you guys for coming today. So we've got basically 20 minutes from 7:25 to 7:45. We were hoping that you could just kind of hit the high points of your proposal and any reasons why you feel like you guys are best suited for the search for us, and then hopefully leave like 5 minutes or so for any follow-up questions or anything along those lines.
Thank you, sir. Yes, well, thank you for having us. I'm coming to you from the beautiful Lake Quinault Lodge. And fortunately, we do have internet, but you have to pay for it. That's the good news. So my name is Steve Lauder. I've been a superintendent for more than 30 years. My districts have been tiny, 100 kids, K-8, to my last district, which was 38,000 kids. So my career spans a wide range of different schools and school districts, sizes, communities. I've been doing superintendent searches since 2014. Most recently, Issaquah, Kent, quite a few of the Washington school districts, and even some very small ones as well. Dr. Duran, want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. Pleasure to meet you all. Yeah, my name is Ivan Duran. I'm currently the superintendent for Highline School District, which is just south of Seattle. So I'm sending greetings to you from that area. I've been a superintendent for about 5 years now. This is my first year in Highline. Previously, I was superintendent in Bellevue School District and spent the majority of my career in Denver, Colorado, where I worked as an assistant superintendent in Denver Public Schools. I also had the opportunity to be down in Dallas ISD, which was a really large school system, 160,000 students, where I really learned that I valued smaller school districts and being able to be better connected. And so Highline's a district of about 17,000 students, and it's a perfect fit for me. And so I feel very honored to be here tonight. So thank you for your time.
Thanks. Thanks, Dave. So I think one of the things I want to be able to say to you tonight is you're trying to select a team, people who you feel comfortable with, because in the end, the searches, the processes are very similar. I would say that our process, our protocol is very effective. The people that are placed through our process come to districts and stay a long time. And longevity of leadership is key to academic success. It's key to making sure that the community, the staff, the students feel good about what's going on in the district. That's probably the most important thing. And we do this because it's about the kids. This is a mission-driven endeavor. Neither Dave or I need to do this. We don't need the money. We do it because this is an important job. This is an important event in your lives and the lives of your community, your school district. And we want to be part of that because we think that public education is critical to our democracy. And we find that if you don't have a good school system, then you don't have the foundations for that democracy. So it's very important to us. And it's been something that I've been doing for nearly 40 years. Our process is open. It is your process, and you can modify it as you see fit. But we prefer to have the process be open and collaborative and include as many of the constituents or educational partners as you would like. Clearly, students, staff, classified staff administrators, board members clearly are part of the process, but also people in the community. And you will identify those groups. We'll go to these groups and we'll talk to them about what's important to them, what's good about the district, what's good about the community that helps us to find the right fit. Because the reason the people that we work with that are selected by the board come and stay because they have been vetted for a fit. It's a good fitting process to the community and to the district. There are a lot of people out there that have the credentials and the experience to be your next superintendent, but they may not come and stay a long time. You want them to come and stay to make a difference over time. And the fit process, our process, really works well. It's your process. It's something that has been going on for a long time across the country. We have connections. We have 130 people like Ivan and I around the country, but we also have a lot of people in the state of Washington and Oregon. And by the way, most of your candidates are going to come from Washington. You're going to find people who are outside that state, or the state of Washington, who may want to return, may want to retire and come back and still work because they still feel they can contribute. So the majority of your people are going to be from Washington, but we're going to search high and low for the right people. And those 130 people out there across the country are going to search for a right fit. I think that's one of our strengths. We bring good people. You'll see somewhere between 6 and 8 people who fit your profile that we have vetted, and we say we vet 3 deep. We don't just call the references. We call their ESD superintendents or the district superintendents that are in the neighboring districts and talk to them about these people and find out who they really are. And is what they say on the paper really, truly who they are? That's very important to us, because we will say to you that if you hire somebody that we have vetted and said they are good, if they leave for any reason whatsoever in the first 2 years, we're going to come back and do the next search at just expenses. We don't make any more money. If there's travel expenses or advertising expenses, that's all you pay. So you have a guarantee for 2 years that this person is going to stay there and be the best superintendent you can find. I don't want to take too long. I know it's a short process. And as I said, processes are very similar, other than the fact that we have a proven process. It's modified by you as you see fit, but we have been doing these searches for a long time, and the process that we offer works well, finds the right people. I think you'll be extremely happy with it. That's kind of it. Questions for us?
I can go real quick.
I didn't say.
Yeah.
Sorry, Carl. Is it Carl? Please go ahead.
Yep, absolutely. So can you talk through, I noticed in your proposal, you guys state that all or some of the process will be virtually. Can you walk, I've been through obviously a superintendent search before, and I'm just trying to visualize, all of the things that we did and then kind of inputting that in a virtual world. Can you just talk to me through what that looks like and how you guys, is and then help me understand is the price, assuming you essentially do it all, and if we ever say, hey, we want you to come in person, there's an additional cost for that?
There would be travel expenses, of course. There's no additional fees, but again, the maximum guaranteed price is, I think, $16,250. I think is what they have in the paper quote. But so here's my take. 16 what?
14,250.
450.
14.
I'm sorry, 14. Pardon me. Yes, I misspoke. 14,250. Sorry. Here's my experience with virtual. Before the pandemic, we did a lot of in-person work. And when the pandemic came along, I thought we were going to have a degradation in service. Much to my surprise, what happened is we actually have opened the process up to many more people. You have an opportunity for people who have children, they're cooking dinner, they have another obligation. They can get online and be part of a process, either via a Zoom meeting, via a SurveyMonkey survey that we have, or to watch recorded videos. That's part of the option for you. We'll put together for your finalists a set of questions. We'll record them and you can post them on your website, and then people can respond to them, to those videos online. So we've found that it actually enhances and expands the opportunity. It becomes more inclusive. You hear from more voices. And if you need in person, if you believe that for a specific group or opportunity, you want us to be there, we'll be there. But it's going to increase the cost, but no more than that 14,250 amount. But you can save money as well. So it's really up to you. If some boards want more in person, some boards are fine with all virtual. Kent, Issaquah, they were all virtual, and they had extensive participation, and they were very happy with them.
Yeah, and I'll just add that I was hired last spring through Highline. Through the process I went through, nearly everything was virtual until the final day where they actually had me come in and do a full day in the district and ended it with the town hall at the end of the day. And I found that process really allowed me to get to know the community. I felt I had a better reach with everybody that was on the virtual calls. Then when I was able to actually come in for the final interview, I had a lot of good information from what I gathered during those virtual Zoom calls.
Thank you for that. And thank you for reminding me that the interviews of the finalists are in person, not virtual. You can have virtual meetings. In fact, a couple of our districts have had their first round interviews virtually, although you will see each of those finalists answer some questions. When you select your finalists for interviews, you'll see them answer 3 questions on a video. Once you've invited them to interviews to be in your community. And it's a 10 to 12 hour interview day if you go with our recommendation.
So just one follow-up. So I see that the cost is 10,700. And then it says a not to exceed amount, including expenses, is 14,250 asterisk for an online search. So just for clarity, if we said, oh, hey, no, we'd like to do this in person, the asterisk, if I look at it, it says the district chooses to search using in person. Consulting expenses are estimated 500 a trip to the district. So that would be 500 on top of that 14,250, right?
No, it's 500 on top of the 10.
Oh, okay.
The minimum price is the 10, and then there's not to exceed the 14, but there will be some costs for duplication office expenses and things like that. But those are not huge costs. They're small costs. If you chose to advertise in something that's not in the quote, then that would be additional as well, above and beyond. And there could be a time, for example, if you wanted us to be at 3 in-district meetings, there could possibly be something over the 14,250, but I've not seen that happen. That's extremely rare.
Hi, my name's Peter Ledoux. Curious about the diversity portion. So your stance on diversity, recruiting, bring that in, is it more so open and provide basically like blind resumes in, or is it purposeful to say we want to include a diverse recommendation towards the board for an interview process?
Well, it kind of depends on where the board is with this, but it goes without saying that many of our consultants across the nation come from underrepresented groups, minorities, females. And for example, one of our consultants, Gustavo Balderas, superintendent of Beaverton in Oregon, is a member of the National Association of Hispanic Administrators this year. So he's got a lot of ties to those administrators who are underrepresented in the Pacific Northwest. We have people who belong to the African American Association of School Administrators, and they have access to lots of clients or possible applicants in that pool. So we do actively seek out clients, not clients, we seek out candidates from those groups because we think that's a very healthy thing. And it kind of, we take the board's lead, but we naturally do these things. I'm not sure, does that answer the question you've asked?
Yeah, I think so.
I just have a clarifying question, really. So in the process for obtaining parent and community input and obtaining stakeholder input, are those where your consultants are virtual and the parents and the community come together, but you're virtual, or are you on site for those?
Well, so let me do the virtual piece first. We can be on site to do them if that's something the board feels is important to make sure they connect with the community, to parents and staff. But we've had great success holding Zoom meetings where people can log on, just like we're logging on now, and they can provide input via either speaking to us online or via the SurveyMonkey, which is a link to this meeting, would be a meeting like this, where they can put their input in. A lot of times people are not comfortable saying things in groups or in Zoom meetings, which are more public. They feel much more comfortable. You'll receive extensive comments from your community on those Zoom surveys. And we'll talk about those if we're selected. You can modify the questions, you can ask specific questions. But suffice to say, you get everything. You get all the information that people put in there except names or profanity. Spellings, typos, negativity, all of that goes to the board for their review in the decision-making process. And it tends to be quite extensive. And again, there are several opportunities for that in the process. Again, let me go back to the in-person piece. If that's something the board desires, we can do that. But again, we've had great participation via Zoom and the SurveyMonkeys. And personal phone calls, by the way. There are sometimes people, we need to make personal phone calls to 1 or 2 people, and we can do a lot of that work via the phone as well.
Thank you. We have 4 minutes. I usually give a 5-minute warning. I'll give a 4-minute warning. Any other questions?
We're good.
No? I never like to waste time, I guess. So I've got just a couple, or actually I'll just leave it down to one. So I guess what separates, obviously going through this once, the way I guess I visualize the process is, you know, you have contacts with superintendents, current superintendents, or people that are looking to be a superintendent, you know, across the state or in other areas. And there's a number of, I work in a heavily recruited industry, right, where I'm talking to headhunters quite often, you know, how are things going, Carl? And I'm talking to multiple ones. So I guess the way I feel is that, you know, to a certain extent, you know, the same basic people are kind of talking to the same 2 or 3 recruiters. And, you know, any recruiter has access to that same person. I guess what you feel puts your firm in a better position to get maybe those candidates that someone else wouldn't get, or something like that. What is there something that you feel puts you a step ahead, if that question makes sense?
It does make sense. We have 130 recruiters across the nation, not 2 or 3. So they are out there looking in their states across the country for the candidates that fit your profile. Once you've developed the profile of characteristics and qualities and experiences, that gets sent out to all those individuals, and they start looking for people that fit that profile, and they make recommendations to us. Of course, we know the administrators associations in all the states as well, because most of our people have worked in schools. So you talk to those people, you talk to the superintendents, you know, who's up and coming, who's ready for the move, who's ready for the next level, who's ready for a move to a great place in Washington. So we have an extensive network, and it works well for the districts.
Yeah, the other part I'll add is that I'm based here in Washington, so I have a good connection here to the districts, both in Puget Sound area, you know, from King County, Pierce County, and up to Arlington. I've got some good connections. So, you know, have a lot of people that we know that, you know, could be potential candidates for this. And, you know, just as I, you know, quickly looked at some of your mission statement, you know, the state report card, I mean, I know there's a lot of work that still needs to continue up in Granite Falls. And I really just want to say I appreciated what you all had on your site around we expect success. I mean, that was something that just really struck me, and just know that we'd be really working to ensure that we find a candidate that would carry on that, not only as a motto, but as actually put into action. So I believe we'll be able to make some connections with people here locally who could be interested in moving up to Granite Falls to be the next superintendent.
Right.
Again.
All right. Oh, thank you. We appreciate you taking the time this evening, and
I think we're gonna at least deliberate on making a decision tonight.
Yeah, we'll.
Oh, that was the first question, was, are you going to make a decision tonight?
Yeah,
and I think I heard you say yes.
We're going to deliberate.
Okay.
I potentially, maybe we want to invite back for a second round or something along those lines, but it's
That's fine.
definitely on the agenda.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. Let me just quickly, 10 seconds worth, tell you again, this is about the kids. This is mission driven for us. We do this because it's been our life's work, and we feel very strongly about the need to make sure that public education has outstanding leadership. It's not about the money. We do this because it is very important to us. We would love to have your business. We'd love to be able to work with you, and we will stay with you no matter how long it takes to get the right superintendent. We'll even stay with you afterwards in what we call phase 5 to ensure that that first year is going to be successful with your superintendent. We're always available via phone for the candidates that you select. And we have years of experience in the chair, and we can be very helpful to the next superintendent and to the school board in making sure things run smoothly and successfully. Thank you so much for your time this evening. We really appreciate it. And thank you for doing what you're doing out there. Being school board members is not always a pleasant task these days, and we really appreciate you doing that. Thank you so much for that service.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
You do have the other two gentlemen in the waiting.
All right.
Be seeing it up there.
So I have till 7:50. I really do need to take a walk. So I'm gonna do that. I hope I can do it before I go.
That's where like,
Ice cream. They should be joining any second.
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we
Outstanding.
Lord.
Can you
Welcome.
hear us?
We can hear and see you. Thank you for joining. My name is Carl Carey. I'm Vice Chair. Appreciate you guys coming. So we have about 20 minutes to kind of go through your proposal. What we're hoping is that you guys can introduce yourself, kind of talk about your proposal, the value that you guys bring, and then hopefully leave, at least 5 minutes at the end just for some questions. That work for you guys?
Great. Certainly does.
Andy, take it from there.
Well, Vice President Carey and President Veach, members of the board, we want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening about how we might partner to provide an unparalleled superintendent search experience for the Granite Falls School District and your community. My name is Steve Webb, and I retired as superintendent of Vancouver Public Schools in 2021 after nearly 15 years of service to the district and 36 years in public education. I also spent a decade earlier in my career serving as a principal, assistant superintendent, and deputy superintendent in Lake Stevens School District. So I'm very familiar with Snohomish County and Granite Falls. I'll serve as the lead on this particular search. I'll ask Hank to introduce himself briefly. Hank?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Steve. And board, thank you so much for having us here tonight. My name is Hank Harris. I've been doing this work for about 10 years. My background is as a teacher and a principal and a HR leader I started my career in the Evergreen School District down in Vancouver, and I concluded my K-12 career as executive director of HR in Bellingham. So it's a delight to be with you. I don't have quite the same, I don't have 10 years in Snohomish County, but family in Marysville and spent a lot of time there, and also did a lot of consulting with the Marysville School District. We do a lot of work around the Puget Sound. It would be an honor to engage with, it is an honor to engage with you tonight, and it would certainly be an honor to serve as your partners in this very important transition that you're about to embark. And I think I'm taking the next. One of the things we want to talk about that Steve and I would like to do in our 10 minutes or so presentation is to talk to you a little bit about how we see our team at Human Capital Enterprises as maybe different. So you're interviewing a number of quality search firms tonight. Your job, right, is to figure out which one best matches your needs. And so we're going to help you out a little bit and talk about why we think we are maybe different than some of the other firms, and you can see whether that feels like a match to you or not. We're gonna outline 5 differentiators. Hopefully you've already had a chance to look through our proposal. One key differentiator I want to speak to is, as you see, Steve is a superintendent and I come from the HR world. We are superintendent and HR team, and most firms don't bring that combination of talent. Steve has sat in the chair, as he described, for many years as a superintendent working with elected school boards. And I sat in the chair as executive director of HR for 3 different school districts, running hiring processes, running recruitment events, finding candidates to do a stellar job, and working with teams to ensure that we are selecting someone outstanding. We think you are best served by having both skill sets, and that combination, one superintendent, one HR leader, is something that not all firms can offer. Steve?
The second differentiator we want to highlight is the breadth and depth and authenticity in which we approach stakeholder engagement. We engage communities in 2 ways. First, focus groups, students, certified and classified staff, principals, district administrators, parents, community members, labor partners, affinity groups, if there is an interest in doing so. Those focus groups are about 40 minutes in length. We conduct those in both English and Spanish. The second way in which we engage the community is through a community survey. That survey is administered both in English and in Spanish. In both activities, we focus on 3 critical questions. The first question is the what's great question. What are you proud of in the Granite Falls School District? What does the Granite Falls School District do well? That's the first area of focus and inquiry. The second question is the what's coming down the pike question. What are the major initiatives and challenges that you expect your new superintendent will face in the near term? Both of those questions are critically important because it helps inform the manner in which we actively recruit applicants and candidates for this particular role. The third and final question focuses on the qualities. What professional experiences, professional attributes, personal qualities are most important to you in the new superintendent? All of that information then is reviewed by our team across all of the stakeholder engagement activities, and we craft a draft next superintendent criteria that really is grounded in community input. And we actually engage in a crosswalking activity to make sure that, in fact, it is reflective of the voices of the community and what we heard. The final community engagement activity is an optional stakeholder interview panel. And sometimes we find that some boards and some communities have an interest in having a panel engage more deeply in conversations with finalists. It's not up to the stakeholder interview panel to rank order their preferred candidates, but we do facilitate a process to make sure that we discover and share the input and feedback for the board to consider as the board begins its own deliberation with finalists. Hank?
Yeah. So, so a little bit of interesting news is that I'm getting a little message on my screen that my internet is unstable, which almost never happens to me. So Steve.
No,
That's his side.
Quiet and you can.
Hank, do you want to go off camera and see if that helps stabilize? Hopefully it's just the internet that's unstable.
And I don't know if the board heard anything I said. So I am, as you see, having some instability. Can you hear me right now?
We can, yeah.
Okay, I apologize. So I might turn off my video while speaking. This doesn't happen very often, and it's unfortunate it's happening tonight. But I do want to talk to you about our third differentiator, which has to do with recruitment. Obviously, this is of high interest to you, board. You want to make sure that we are out there finding people of great talent to serve as your next leader. We feel that we are uniquely suited in being deeply connected to the leadership in the Pacific Northwest, and also very strongly networked around the country. As the guy who actually owns the firm, I will tell you that at the end of the day, it's actually your consultants networks that are the most important, not a broad array of many other associates, but really the folks who are doing the search. We will do advertising, but I will tell you that 70% of our finalists come not from seeing an ad, but from the outreach that we do. And that is whether we're calling them directly, but more often it's us calling sources and people that we know. And honestly, with Steve's deep work in Washington State, and I spend most of my career in Oregon and some years in Washington, people do pick up the phone when we call. And when we say, hey, Granite Falls needs X, Y, Z, A, B, and C for their next superintendent, people pick up the call and they tell us who we ought to be looking for. We have the network not only regionally, but nationally as well. We have 40,000 people who read our e-blasts. We even get fan mail because of the quality of that blast that goes out that announces our positions. And I would say one more thing about this. When you speak to school districts, school boards about our work, and when you ask them about the caliber of talent that we brought them, they will tell you time and time again that they were surprised and delighted at the quality of leadership that they saw in their applicant pool, and that it was unlike any other search they had done before. I don't want you to take my word for that, but we hear that time and time again. And I think that is a mark of how we do work differently, is bring candidates that wouldn't otherwise be applying, but we're calling them and saying, we hear about you, we hear you're doing great work, and we think you have a really great match in Granite Falls. Steve?
The fourth differentiator we want to highlight is the notion of customizing our process that is unique and tailored to the context of Granite Falls School District and your community. And although you've seen our proposal, we do have certain phases and certain practices and certain processes that we've refined over a decade of doing this work as a firm. But our hope is to engage with the Granite Falls School Board shortly after selection to identify all the unique context and circumstances that might warrant modification of this particular proposed search timeline and activities. For example, Hank and I just recently completed the search for the Bellevue School District. And Bellevue's board had a significant interest in expanding the number of languages in which we engaged the community, including the utilization of Mandarin language surveys and facilitation of multiple focus groups in native AAPI languages. Additionally, Bellevue had an interest in broadening the number of focus groups and adding an additional stakeholder interview panel as a way of engaging more community and district partner leaders and providing more intimate feedback relative to the finalists. The point of sharing this illustration is to say, even though many firms will come to you with an off-the-shelf process and plan, we work hard to customize that based on your unique interests and your community's unique context. Hank?
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to try to do this with the video on. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. So this is the last one, the last differentiator, and this might be of specific interest to any staff members that are sitting in the room or watching, which is this. If we are your partners, we do the work. We don't pass off the work onto staff and have them do the work for us. So we don't delegate or offload. We recognize that Granite Falls team members are extremely busy. There are, to be fair, there are some discrete pieces of work that will outline that will fall to staff, but for the most part, staff is not going to feel heavily burdened by this search because we are managing all the many balls that are juggling and landing them. So our fifth differentiator is we do the work. And I want to leave the presentation with maybe just a few more points, recognizing we probably just have a couple of more minutes before we get to the Q&A that we are very interested to receive. But I would say that one of the things that we do, if it's not already clear as board, as search partners to the board, is to put our candidates, to put your candidates through a process which is very rigorous and very thoughtful and respectful. Very rigorous. And here we're going to humbly advise you, if we can, that you might want to use that same level of rigor in determining who your search partner will be. And here's what I mean by that. I am sure you all know that the most, I'm sure you feel deeply that the most important decision you will make as a school board is whom to hire as your next superintendent, right? We believe that the most important decision you make towards succeeding in that regard is whom to choose as your search partner. And so we would humbly, very humbly encourage you to use the same rigor with which you will select your new superintendent in this process. And therefore we humbly submit to you, this might feel like a little bit of a curveball, that you might not want to make a final decision tonight. And here's why. Because if there's ever a time to use time wisely, and you board have bought a whole lot of time by starting this process months before almost any other district will, if there's ever a time to slow down, Steve and I recommend that unless you've already done your due diligence telephone reference calls, you ought not make a decision based solely on the paper proposals or the cost or on tonight's presentation. We don't hire candidates without doing reference checks. And Steve and I think the best thing you could do, whether we end up as your search firm or someone else does, is to make sure you're asking some key questions around which firm is going to manage your timelines with fidelity, or help the board to hold itself accountable to your ideal profile, or be accessible really 24/7, 7 days a week, or bring you the best candidates that are specifically right for your district, or has the best track record for searches that are successful the first time through and yield high quality candidates. I hope that you hear that in the spirit of humility that I'm offering it. We would love to serve as your search partners. We know we would do an exceptionally strong job for you and serve the community with honor. We are confident that if you take that extra step, you will feel a very high level of certainty that you've picked the right firm, regardless of whether you pick us or someone else. Thank you for allowing us to present. I know you've got questions. We'd love to hear them.
Right. Board.
That's okay if I jump in with the one I asked. So can you just walk me through, is there a portion of the scope included that you guys are planning on doing virtually? You talk about that you found it effective to do virtually. Is there any amount that, or what specifically is in person? Just real quick, walk me through that if you don't mind.
You want to take that, Steve?
Yeah, the planning meeting with the board will be in person. Certainly, if there is a preference relative to a stakeholder interview panel, if you choose to exercise that option, we've done those both in person and virtual. So we're equipped to accommodate that given the preference and direction of the board. And then certainly all of the finalist interviews, the interactions with board debriefs, all of that will happen in person. The one-on-ones with board directors, the focus groups, the other engagements with first round interviews with the board, all of that can be managed successfully virtually. And of course, it reduces travel-related expenses.
Just one follow-up. You guys say a community stakeholder panel. I guess just to talk through the extra. So if we wanted to have a panel of stakeholders prior to the finalists, that's an additional $2,400. And a background check is an additional cost too. There's not a background check included in the base fee.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. So the stakeholder is a very laborious, very intense process that begins with helping the board figure out who gets to sit on that committee and how that works. It engages community stakeholders in the actual creation of interview questions. We facilitate a panel that I think is very, very strong and effective in terms of providing feedback, legitimate and fair and deep feedback from a group of stakeholders. And we can do that, as Steve said, we can do that virtually very effectively. We can also do that in person. I think that particular event, we've probably seen the most sort of split. We can go either way really at the discretion of the board. Background checks are not inexpensive. We partner with a third-party investigative entity. We can reduce costs there depending on whether you feel it's important to do a social media background check and or a news story background check. So sometimes boards say, hey, we want to save money. What can we do our own Google searching and news stories? And you can. So there are ways, if that feels like that's prohibitive, there are ways to cut that down.
I know we only have a couple more minutes, so I'll let someone else if they have a question. I don't want to steal the time.
You asked what I was gonna ask. So.
I'll pop in then real quick. Sorry. It's important to the board to really engage the community and helping us, pick who's going to be our next leader. And just looking at your scope, I didn't see, other than the first kind of 15-minute, I didn't see a lot of kind of community involvement. So I guess particularly, I'm just trying to figure out it. So outside of that panel that you're talking about, like if we said, hey, that we want to engage with a number of different stakeholders so that they can be, we're making sure everyone feels heard. Is that an additional cost? Is that just something that we coordinate virtually?
No, absolutely. There's no extra cost. That's a really significant piece. And I'm sorry if that wasn't more salient in the proposal. So when we begin the search, we are engaging deeply with community, multiple, and it should be there in the list of
15, 40-minute focus groups.
Just in the beginning, though, like we did like a big thing. I'm sorry, we're having an internal conversation. We had like a big community forum with Dr. M, like as we were doing final interviews and stuff. And so it's that kind of ladder stuff, community involvement that I'm speaking to specifically. If I'm not being clear, I apologize.
Okay, so Director Carey, are you talking about at the final end in terms of
Yeah.
the interview process? So we'll walk you through some different options. One of the things that you might have noticed is that we want to have a conversation with you as your search partners about the value of having a search in which names of candidates are not broadcast widely and publicly versus doing that. And you can go either way you want to do that, but we would want to have a conversation about in the current era right now, many sitting superintendents are opting not to apply for jobs in which their name will be made public as part of the process, right? Because they might not get the job and then they have to go back to their own districts and try and save face. On the other hand, as I hear in your question, there's also a high value by communities and certainly by boards or board members that there should be a lot of community involvement in that final part of the process. You can go either way. We just want to share with you kind of the pros and cons. If you decide you want to have an event that is much larger than the community stakeholders, an open forum or an evening, we can certainly add that into the package. And we can do that at a price point that makes sense for you. Or if you're not doing the community stakeholder, it could actually end up being less than what we would be billing for. We want this to be a process that works for you. We also want to make sure that the process is highly professional, well organized, clear, transparent to candidates and your community. And you all know that running events like that actually does take time, energy, brain power, bringing people together to make sure that everything is crisp. Here's what I promise will never happen in one of our searches, that people won't know the date or the event or the time of an event, that candidates will be told, hey, we're gonna have a meet and greet on Tuesday. No, actually it's gonna be Thursday. That is not how we operate. So we wanna make sure that we are reflecting Granite Falls in the most professional way and ensuring a really high quality product. If we're having a town hall or an open meeting, we're going to do that. We're going to do that and make you really proud of the work that goes on.
That's it. It's time.
So we are over time, aren't we? I just realized we are over time. All right, would like to thank you for coming tonight and thank you for the presentation. We do plan to discuss the decision tonight, but we're not certain that we will make the decision tonight, but we will let each of the candidates know, at the end of the meeting, whether we've made a decision tonight or whether we plan to ask a few more questions and come back around. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Same to you. So the next item on the agenda is obviously our consideration. Probably a good, or do we need a break? 5-minute break, or do you just want to go?
Well, I took a 4-minute break, back with an ice cream sandwich.
Are you going to come back with a 5-minute break? Well,
why don't we just take 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Take 5. Let's do a 5-minute break just to stand up and stretch. It's been a couple hours. Do 5 minutes.
or unmuted.
All right, welcome back. So we are on item 3D, consider selecting and contracting with superintendent search firm. Discussion.
I think the first question, I think we should start this if we feel like we have enough information to make a decision tonight. I mean, there is no, I mean, we certainly can, we can certainly punt it for later. The only challenge for punting it to later is we're in May. June has 2 meetings. One, yeah, so we start pretty soon at the 1 meeting thing. And so things start to get long.
Yeah. And
so-
graduation.
and graduation and all of that stuff. So I guess we can just start there.
I think I'll start off by, I would say that, I can't obviously speak for the board, but me personally, I feel comfortable in one over others if we want to have that discussion. So I'll put it there in terms of like, I'm completely fine with the timeline of today for a decision.
I'll jump in. I mean, I am, if it's the consensus of the board, obviously, I mean, that goes without saying, but you know, if I would even be, if one person felt super like they, nope, let's take more time, right? Even though it's not technically consensus, I'd be okay waiting, but I definitely feel like I have enough to make a decision tonight. If everyone else feels good, I mean, literally, we all feel that we're there. I'm cool with making a decision tonight.
Well, you know me, I always sit back and think, I'm a thinker. So I would prefer to think, but I'd like to hear what you have to say because I have thoughts each way. So
About waiting and not waiting? Or-
no, I mean about the proposals that we just heard, and then it, you know, after the proposal's done, the call ends or the presentation ends and they walk away, and then I got 1 or 2 more thoughts in my head that I didn't think of at the time. None of them do I think are they like deal breakers. I'm just curious kind of questions, right? So what do you got?
Well, Carly, Bill, do you guys feel like just baseline, do you feel like we have enough to make a decision tonight? And obviously then we can jump into them. Everyone feels.
For me, there's still a little open-ended about what the total cost projections will be for at least one of these.
I would say multiple. I still have some concerns with, yeah.
So being able to dive a little deeper into the costs might be a good option for us instead of just depending on what we have currently.
Can I ask what because I would agree that there's uncertainty, but the uncertainty seems like it is a burden upon the decisions that we make. So if we decide that we want additional this or that, then there's confusion on, is it $500? Is it expenses? What do expenses qualify as? But I feel like all of them had that. And I'm just wondering, like, if we did dig deeper, are we just going to come back and say, yep, we're still uncertain? So,
And we can, I mean, our decision tonight could be, you know, we would like to award to blank. However, we have these questions or blah, 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 or something along those lines. You know, and we could communicate, you know, ask Director Veach to kind of answer, get those questions and get those answers. And, oh yeah, that all looks good. The only thing is we'd have to make, I believe, then a final decision at the June one. So it would be, so the motion would be something to the intent of, you know, we would like to investigate awarding the contract to blank based upon feedback from these questions, after which a final decision will be made. So that's still a June decision, but we could do that. I mean, obviously.
That could be, you know, if it could consider something after success and ed in 2 weeks too.
Yeah. Well, just to move it forward, because I don't want us to hurt. So it sounds like we at least feel like, you know, maybe kind of dive in to we have enough to kind of dive into the discussion on the different ones. So I'm fine with however you guys want to do this. Last time, I thought it was a pretty good process of where, and we had a discussion just on taking cost out of it, which I know is almost impossible, just cost out of it, who we felt was best leveraged to do it, like who was off, what proposal, what presentation we felt was best. then have a conversation, put cost into it and say, yeah, but that person was great, but we can't afford it, so I'm cool with this person or something along those lines. So are you guys okay with that, or any other way I'm cool with it?
However you want to get it.
Okay. I just, all in all, I'll just start the discussion. There was, if you're just looking at, the breadth of what's being provided, I felt really good with the, hold on, I just forgot their names, and let me scroll up to the top here. With the Northwest Leadership Association for a couple of reasons. I liked, listen, I'm a consultant and I do all-inclusive lump sum proposals, and I love that because it protects you, it protects me, it protects everybody. I know I'm not talking cost, but I just like how it was, hey, here's what we're thinking. And, here is, if something else, blah, blah, blah. So I also appreciated the feedback with they were saying about maybe delaying the decision to February to kind of open it up a little bit more. But even with that said, I was showing Carly in the last proposal that we had, they were actually saying, oh gosh, you're so far ahead of it, you're doing great. Like, you should continue with this timeline. So I guess we have to have some more discussions on which is better.
I think that the Northwest leadership people, they gave us, 2 different timelines.
Right.
So they're not exactly saying that we're in the wrong with going early. They're just, saying based off of what they've done before, later is better. So I don't think they're necessarily not saying that,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
And I'd like tell me I'm an old fogey. Maybe I am. And, as someone that's on Zoom calls all day long, I don't know. I keep thinking, like, how would our community respond? Like, would we really get more engagement with doing like an online thing? I think no, right? I mean,
No. People are burned out.
Yeah.
Like burnt out.
Yeah.
Completely. And I've just gone through a whole bunch of interviews myself, and some of them have been Zoom interviews, and they're very uncomfortable and awkward. And I've had much better experiences in person with things and just chatting with people in general. That's just me though. I'm just not a Zoom person.
So you've lived here forever. I mean, what do you think? Like online?
Well, I think the dynamic in the community's changed. Certainly in the business that I'm in, we transitioned, and virtual online is actually, it has made us more productive. It's given us more options. It's opened up opportunities that we didn't have. We were looking at in person all the time. Because realistically, it closes the door a lot on people that are on a broader range of candidates, as it were, or opportunities. Whereas if we focus a lot more on the virtual, we'll open those doors.
Yeah. So you actually think it would be fine?
I don't see any issue with it. I like the idea of a combination, but having, predominantly virtual for me would work.
Okay.
So I think about our community, and I think we have people that just have busy lives, and they might actually just click a link if they can stay home. But if you want them to actually get dressed and schlep down to the commons, right, you might not get them. But then I also think we have community members that don't have great internet service. So if we are 100% virtual on these meetings and there's not the option to show up, I think we're eliminating some of our community members and families that would otherwise have an avenue of some kind to give input. So if we went with a virtual option, I need to see a way to make sure that the voices of Granite Falls are all included.
Yeah.
Right. So whatever that looks like, I think that it can't just be that meeting time online or nothing, because.
Yeah. And that's why I like the Northwest Leadership Associates. They had kind of a mix, right? It was some virtual and some in person, and had a good mix, where the other two were a lot more virtual than.
So Ava wrote a bunch of notes, and I am very interested in what she wrote. She was taking some serious notes over here. Can we get an advisory?
Of course we can.
From our student representative. She writes small too.
She writes very close.
They're serious enough.
No, put them out there. No, we want to hear what you have to say for sure.
If you feel comfortable.
No, oh no, do you want to just pass the note down? We can read it. Hold on, I brought 2 pairs of glasses and I still can't read it.
Well,
All right.
it's funny, just as you guys were talking, and I appreciate that feedback, because I was like, oh, maybe it could work. I just had the thought with, and I, by the way, I'm not, I don't know which of the 3 somebody could make a great argument I could be, so I'm still there, but with Northwest, it's in person, and if you need, so if we wanted to go virtual, there's no cost.
Right.
With the other ones, it's all virtual, and if we want you in person, there's cost,
Yeah.
right?
At a high level, and I won't bury the lead here too. I think I'm in the same mindset there with Northwest, and a few of the points why. McPherson and Jacobson, all virtual. I'm not negative towards virtual. I think we could be successful, whether virtual or in person. Some of the, and then with the human capital enterprise, it seemed like a lot. Like they have, it's a very extensive scope of work. We're currently going through the long-term planning, and I know how, right, I use the term analysis paralysis, right, and going through and this is probably a poor analogy, but I've been talking about this lately, right? We're bringing somebody in because we're looking for expertise, right? It's like with your house, you bring in a plumber because you don't know anything about plumbing and you want them to teach you the best way forward.
Right.
And I'll say Northwest felt like they were the only ones that made it abundantly clear that they have an opinion on how you should go about this, and even to challenge what we were already, even if it's a light challenge, right? Hey, we're thinking December, like I would urge you to push it a little bit further. And that's my diversity question when it came to McPherson. I was hoping for a little bit more. The most successful panels do this, where it was more like, you decide. Oh no, that's why we're bringing you in, right? And so that's why I'm personally, when I read or when I listen to what I got back was, Northwest, because even within their language, right? If they find there was something about, if they find a great candidate, they will aggressively pursue them in a one-on-one scenario. And then when we asked them about, it almost sounded like it was almost extra for the second group to make a phone call. They said they'd be willing to pick up the phone and call out, and I'm like, oh yeah, so aggressive interaction versus we'd be willing to, just reading different. So that's my thought on it.
Well, and I thought it was funny because the second one was like, we'll do all the work, but they're the ones that had the list of the things they do and all of the things that we should do. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
You do all the work. But then the last one, I mean, we're not talking cost, but they have a pretty high price. And then, but all of these other things add on and it goes, it's like, holy moly.
I have some good thoughts on that once we get to the cost piece for sure.
I want to add, because I'm looking over all of these proposals and realistically, and I might have missed it, but Northwest is the only one that talked about taking us all the way through contract negotiations. Being our partner through the entire process.
Yeah.
Where the other 2 proposals, and like I said, I might have missed it, left a short ad choosing the candidate. And then where's the service to the other part of it, which is making sure that we negotiate a good contract.
Yeah.
Can I ask for another advisory vote?
Of course.
Dr. Middleton, you've been a candidate. What do you think?
Just in scope outside of price, like.
Yeah, right.
Just as a candidate who's been through the process once or twice.
Right.
And once for Grand Falls.
I've actually, I'll say, pleasure of working with Northwest and with Human Capital. And Hank Harris is right. It is a rigorous process. There is no doubt about it. But I think, they knew he could go back to the board and say, yeah, I really know this Middleton guy and this is what he represents. And to your point, Peter, Northwest, they have a Rolodex and they call and they say, oh, what are you thinking about next year? I mean, they go after, they are aggressive, and both are great gentlemen.
Ava, a Rolodex is an old school. You know what a Rolodex? Okay, all right. I was like, I don't know. We used to write names on cards and put it in this little.
Is that a sign for this guy?
I'm sorry.
Or what?
Thank you for having a good sense of humor about that. Just
Well, you should watch her AMM videos. She's playing an older version than AMM.
just real quick, just lessons learned from the last time. You guys will be. This is a really challenging process, and there is. I mean, even our collective bargaining units are going to want to have interviews and give not a voice, but have not a vote, but have a voice in the process. Like even I remember, this is bringing back memories. Like even we had essentially buildings that were upset because this other building got 10 more minutes. And when we got down to 3 candidates, then another building, so we had to reshuffle the whole schedule, and like it gets and then the biggest thing, and this is huge, is we have to make sure to have a ton of community voice in this, right? Because this is a big deal. I mean, we're going to make a contract for somebody, pay them a lot of money, right? And there's going to be a ton of people that want to have a voice, and we really need to, and we've got the time to really do the stakeholder thing. So the only reason I bring that up is that, I kind of to what Carly was saying, agreeing with her, it's like, I just feel like, I'm not talking about price, but like when you step out of that kind of virtual, okay, I just see situations where it's just like boop, 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 boop. And I don't want to say, my fear is, oh, well, let's not do the background check. Can we afford that right now? Like, Peter, get on Facebook.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Do you have any connections or something like that? Like, I just don't want to like not do something we all feel like we should do, because we're just like, I don't know if we can afford that right now, right? It's July, right? Our fund balance dropped another 5% or 0.5%.
I was gonna say, not 5.
Oh, yeah, 0.5%, 0.5. So okay. Why don't we jump into price? Obviously, significant differences between the three, with Northwest being in the middle, kind of the lump sum, and the other two kind of being more virtual and stuff like that. I don't have to belabor the point. I like the lump sum. I think that we could do that in a way that really utilizes the virtual if we feel like we want a piece of that in the online with no cost impact. I mean, I liked what obviously the last was the most significantly the most expensive. I liked a lot of the things they had to say. I like the fact that they are, small, kind of do 3 or 4 searches and stuff like that. But I mean, that price is sobering, right? And I guarantee that you can also automatically add another 2,000 to that price for the search for the background check, for the background check, right? I mean, who wouldn't do that? I mean, so that's significant. And then not getting in the weeds, I didn't want to take a ton of time, but I really didn't. The middle interviewer, I hope I asked the question right. I thought it was very specific. I was like, if we won in person, he said it's 500 on top of the 10,700, but that's clearly not what it's in their proposal. If you look at the breakdown and stuff like that, it's clear that anything that we do online or in person is on top of the 14,250, at least the way I read it, right? Because even the total says excluding consultant travel for scheduled trips to the district. And then the asterisk says, if the district chooses to do parts search using in person, the consultant consider estimated 500 trip to the district. So anytime, either way, and their scope of work, all of this is virtual. None of this is in person. So clearly to me, it looks like that's 500 on top of the 14,250.
Yeah. That's what I thought too.
And I thought I heard them say, no, it's on top of the 10,700. I'm like, but
he did.
That's what he said.
That's what he said. But yeah, that's where
Well, that's why I was wondering if it was a not to exceed, but then when you have a not to exceed that says excluding consultant travel, it's not a not to exceed anymore. So I was confused.
And we only had a couple minutes, and so I didn't want to like spin on that, but I was like, that's not what this says here. So the point that I'm making there is I see a situation where, I mean, I know it's a couple $1,000s cheaper, but a situation where that could go poop, 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 poop pretty quick too, which kind of leads me more to the kind of all-inclusive thing. But please tell me I'm wrong, tell me I'm seeing it wrong.
Oh, yeah, because if I'm rereading it again, if the district chooses to do parts of the search using in-person meetings, the consultant expenses estimated at $500 per trip to the district. And then the expenses that are included in up to the 14,250 say excluding consultant travel. So that would lead me to believe that if you are now including consultant travel, that would then add $500 to each one.
Right.
So, okay, so I think but regardless, but me personally, the price of even the 14,250 versus the 18 whatever it is for Northwest isn't it's de minimis in my mind compared to the product and the service.
And just my quick thoughts on Human. Again, I thought it was a great interview, even with the technical difficulties, but like I would be like, okay, you guys have to tell me that. I mean, why is this almost twice the cost of, the, well, not twice, but significantly over $10,000 more than this other one? Like, with everything that we have going, do we really think that that's money wisely spent? And if the board felt like it was, I'm there. But for me, it was Northwest is where I'm ending.
Yeah. I like Northwest. The background checks are included, including the digital footprint preview. It's all included. I like their board superintendent workshop thing that they provide. I don't know if you guys read that. That's pretty cool.
And to just expound on your point, sorry to interrupt.
Oh,
you.
no, go ahead.
I actually liked the human I forget which one was talking about the one-on-one with board members. I thought I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. We didn't do that before. And then, I mean, with Northwest, if we wanted that, we could say, hey, we want to do Zooms one-on-one, right? No more cost.
I think that was the second one.
Yeah.
That did the one-on-ones.
Third one. Human capital.
Oh, I thought I saw it in there, but maybe there was a couple, but either way, I do like that as well. Did we not do it one-on-ones?
We met as a board.
Okay. Yeah. I was so new. Man.
Well, and then I don't know if the other ones have this one, but this is interesting too, is that if they can't find a candidate or candidate resigns or whatever, they will do another comparable search without charge.
Yeah. That one, the other ones have, but not the next paragraph where they promise to not recruit.
Yeah, it's
That
gonna
person
say
for
that.
3
We're
years.
not gonna give you, don't know, I'm taking it. Yeah.
We're not, we're gonna give you the person and then hire them back for someone else. Sure.
It kind of sounds like we have a consensus already.
Yeah, I think so.
I'd just like to ask Dr. M. I mean, now we're on the price thing. Your quick thoughts, if you don't mind.
Yeah, the lump sum makes a lot of sense, and I did appreciate that, he was actually here in person.
Yeah.
And as I think you could have a lot of in-person, and that's not going to cost, because it's all part of it.
Well, and the two consultants that are assigned are local.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, so it's not gonna be.
You guys okay if I ask one more question? Marshall, I want to spend $18,700. What's that going to do to our budget?
Well, to be honest, like I had this question last time too, but to find the right, we're committing to 3, 5, 7 years to a $250,000 contract for a superintendent. I don't know that the difference in price should be the deciding factor, to be honest.
We're depreciating it.
Well, I absolutely agree that
That's a very good point.
price shouldn't be the factor here.
That's a very good point. But just strictly budget wise, obviously, I mean, I know the answer is 18,000 in the grand scheme of things is really nothing, but I just wanted to, I guess, make sure
And then
that,
we're paying it next year.
yeah. Well, that's a very good point, but maybe we shouldn't lean so in the price. I mean, that's a decent argument. I mean, price, I would say, still matters, but does that change anyone's opinion?
I think,
No.
as I said, I think that it sounds like we all have a consensus.
Okay, I just didn't know. That was a good point. I didn't know if that changed anyone's thoughts or anything.
Well, I'd like to make a proposal that we move forward with Northwest Leadership Association.
Motion's been made.
All right, the motion's been made.
I will second. Nope, Peter got it. Peter will second.
Do we have to roll call that one or no?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, we do for picking one, but not
Okay.
for this.
All right, so the motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. Thank you. Next we have certificated staff appreciation. I am certain.
Want me to read it?
Yes. Or do we read the thing? Or,
Yeah.
okay,
Usually we read the resolution. I don't mind reading it if you want me to.
okay, sure.
Yeah.
Or yeah, you go ahead.
Are you sure?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. I know you didn't have your other glasses. A proclamation on National Teacher Appreciation Day, National Teacher Appreciation Week 2023. In schools across America, teachers are arriving early to set classes, spending long hours between students and staying late to prepare tomorrow's lesson plans. Their devotion to our children embodies the best of America, ready to serve and eager to see others thrive. Today and during this week, we celebrate our nation's remarkable teachers and early childhood educators, and we recommit to having their backs just as they have ours. In the words of our First Lady, a lifelong educator, teaching is a calling, a way to live out the belief that we can shape our corner of the world one student at a time. But shaping that world demands a lot. Teaching happens inside and outside the classroom. It often includes spending extra time coaching teams, supporting student clubs, and helping kids catch up when they have fallen behind. It means giving young children the foundational skills for success during a critical period of their development. It also demands being endlessly adaptable, like at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, when many classes went online and teachers had to find new ways to keep students engaged in learning. When Jill and I recently hosted the 2023 National Teacher of the Year ceremony at the White House, we were deeply inspired again by the dedication, creativity, and loving strength of our nation's educators. We owe our teachers and early childhood educators so much. We need to pay them better, improve their working conditions, and focus on recruitment and retention. Give Granite Falls more money. Sorry, I added that piece. My administration's American Rescue Plan supported early childhood programs and helped K-12 schools across the country reopen, hire more educators, boost salaries, increase mental health services, and expand after school and summer programs. Thanks to our investments, public schools across the country have added more than 500,000 educators and staff. Compared with before the pandemic, the number of school social workers nationwide is up 48%. The number of school nurses is up 42%. The number of school counselors is up 10%. My fiscal year 2024 budget calls for $600 billion to provide access to high quality child care and preschool programs so all families can afford to enroll their children. And so early childhood educators have higher wages. It would also increase funding for Title I schools, which serve some of the most disadvantaged communities in our nation. Give teachers a raise and expand their ranks, and it calls on Congress to increase salaries for Head Start staff and invest $300 million to help address shortages of special education teachers across America. I did not realize this was so long. My administration has worked to fix the public service loan forgiveness program, a key step in meeting our commitment to those who have chosen this vital profession in other areas of public service. To date, we have helped over 450,000 public school employees, including teachers, get nearly $31 billion in student loan forgiveness. In many cases, educators have had their entire student debt wiped out. Supporting our teachers also demands that we keep them and their students safe at school. Last year, I signed the most significant gun safety law in nearly 3 decades, which includes enhanced background checks for individuals under the age of 21 and funding for states to enact red flag laws that can help keep guns from people who are in danger to themselves and others. This law also authorized more than $1 billion to improve student mental health, enabling schools to hire and train thousands of new mental health professionals. Schools should be places to learn, make friends, and feel the support of a real community. No teacher or student should have to wonder whether the goodbye hug they give their loved ones before going to school one day will be their last. The greatness of a nation is measured in part by how it prepares the next generation to succeed. On National Teacher Appreciation Day and during National Teacher Appreciation Week, we honor the remarkable educators entrusted with this responsibility. As I've traveled the country and met so many of our teachers and seen their passion and dedication, I've never been more confident in the future of America. Now, therefore, I, Joseph R. Biden, Jr., President of the United States of America, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the constitutional laws of the United States, do hereby proclaim May 9th, 2023 as National Teacher Appreciation Day, and May 7th through May 13th, 2023 as National Teacher Appreciation Week. I call upon all Americans to recognize the hard work and dedication of our nation's teachers and observe this day and this week by supporting teachers through appropriate activities, events, and programs. A witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand this 5th day of May in the year of our Lord, 2023, and the independence of the United States of America, the 247th. Joseph R. Biden. Sorry.
Thank you. And thank you for reading it. Next, board comments.
I'll go first. I'll make this quick. We had a facility meeting yesterday that went really well. Again, want to thank everyone for coming out. I just want to echo the words we just read. I went and bought cards for Lila for all of the teachers at the middle school that I represent and hand delivered it to them and told them thank you. And certainly from the bottom of my heart, I certainly want to thank them, not only because it's Teacher Appreciation Week, but because I greatly appreciate the sacrifice and the dedication for our district. That's all I got.
Director Kincaid.
I don't know, I'm tired. Just to echo what Carl said, just thanking all of the teachers out there for all of their hard work. I had the awesome opportunity to experience my first Teacher Appreciation Week, and it was awesome. So so it's very exciting. So proud to be
that's my
I know, proud to be in the ranks.
Yeah, I mean, staff appreciation, there aren't enough words to express the gratitude, right? This doesn't work without you. And so with that, a sincere thank you. Like I said, this could not happen without you. And then also piggyback on what Director Carey was saying, the long-term facilities planning, lots of work to do still, but it's awesome to see the progress and the vibrant discussion. Everybody's super engaged, and that's really what we want, right? Is engagement and activity. And then on a fun note, so I've been able to work with, this is on my Make the Outrageous Ask thing. So this was me presenting myself with my own outrageous ask. And so I was able to work with Don and Paige, and then also Randy at Mountain Way. There'll be official notifications coming out on timing and everything, but on June 5th, the Reptile Man's going to come to Mountain Way in the morning, I believe Mountain Way in the morning, and then Monte Cristo in the afternoon, and then there's going to be a family evening show for everybody to attend as well. And when I say make the outrageous ask, he's free. So I called him and I said, we'd love to have you out here. And he said, great, I'll do it pro bono for you. So this is where I naturally looked at that and thought that I was going to make a donation. I did not, right? I called and I made the outrageous ask and he jumped in. So this is just an example of jump out there and have those crazy, that was something that, right, Carl asked me when I told him, he goes, how'd you think of the Reptile Man? And I said, it was honestly, it's the same guy that when I was going to school would come around, and I just was like, hey, we haven't had assemblies. Like, I think it'd be fun. So if you have some childhood memory, some sort of assembly thing, something that made school more fun, enjoyable, engaging, bring it to us. We'll see what we can try to get done, or at least I won't speak for everybody. Bring it to me. I'll see what I can get done. I can delegate if possible, but I really think that that'll be exciting for everybody involved. And like I said, there'll be more official and formal notifications coming out about that. But yeah.
Awesome.
Well, you guys said all about the appreciation of the staff, and I do appreciate all the school teachers, all the staff members that keep these schools going, keep our students safe and learning. I want to, really thank Bridget for coming out and giving us a presentation for Crossroads. There's a lot more that I'd like to learn, and I think a lot more the community needs to know about the great work they're doing here to bring students in that have otherwise struggled in the mainstream schools and helping them prepare to be active participants in the community after school. And so I thought that presentation was really
Thank you. Eva?
There's a track meet tomorrow. It's supposed to be, I think it's at 4. And then FFA went to state today, so they get back Sunday. So that should be great. I hope that they do well. This past week we've been and still are doing state testing at our school. So we've had block schedules. And if any students are watching on live, I highly encourage you to get some rest and drink lots of water, especially as the temperatures are rising.
Good call. Good call.
Yes.
Well done, Ava.
All right, so what?
You don't have comments?
I have one comment.
Oh, I thought you were going, I'm sorry. I thought you were going on. My bad. What am I doing? Bad, Carl.
I
Sorry.
don't know. So I would like to mention that as a board and with the cabinet, we have been continuing to look at the special education. This is why I'm grateful that you read the thing. The special education spending, the budget, and the serious concerns we have there. We're not done. This week, this Sunday evening and on Monday, we kicked off the sorry, what's the word for it?
Program review.
Oh, program review. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. The special education program review. I think there were a team of 3 reviewers that were here, and they met with administrators, staff, and I'm sure we'll be hearing when they have a draft, and the final report will be published and made public. So we'll keep you all informed of that. But at the same time, we're not. We're still on this funding issue and trying to figure out what the next step is, because Marshall scares me when he says there's special education spending and we can't even forecast how this is going to go, right? And the fund balance goes down and the cost goes up, and we don't have a ton of visibility into what that could look like for the next school year. So that's concerning. Anyway, just some thoughts on my mind. Just know that we're all working on it, and I would be I just also, of course, want to say thank you to the teachers in our district that are being honored this week, and appreciate that effort. So that's all of my comments. So next, I assume we have no items from the floor. Unfinished business, 6A, second reading to amend policy 3421, child abuse and neglect.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the second reading to amend policy 3421, child abuse and neglect.
And we'll second.
The motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Next is a first reading to amend policy 1250, student on governing boards.
Yes, I still need to do some work on this. I'm working with WASDA to refine the model policy. I would love Ava actually to meet with you. We can do it via Zoom or something like that. We've got a policy before us to modify a little bit of the student on the governing board, what you do, and we have the ability to add in like advisory votes before we vote on things or kind of tweak other pieces. So I'd love if you had any feedback to have, or if you want to work with me on it, I'd love to revise it, maybe tweak a couple of things. I certainly have some ideas. So I'd like to table this again. I was looking at my schedule. Dr. M, is it our first or last
It's the
meeting?
last Wednesday in June.
Okay. And I'm actually gone for that meeting. And then our meeting in July is the last July
That's correct.
one. So I'd like to table it to the July 26th meeting, if everyone is okay with that. That gives me some time to work on it. I did get actually today a couple of other boards that have really cool policies. So, you know, I'd like to look at that, maybe talk with Ava and kind of come up with something I think is maybe a hybrid of all of that stuff, or maybe exactly like someone else's if it's great. And obviously then we'll do a first and second. You guys can tell me I'm crazy or you like it or you don't or whatever. So I'd like to make a motion to table item 6B until our meeting, our July 26th meeting.
Okay, motion's been made
Second.
and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is our consent agenda. There's quite a few reports in there. Any discussion?
I was just gonna ask Marshall, so with the budget extensions, explain it to me like I'm a fifth grader.
So when we request our budget in June and July, we are locked in at not being able to spend 1 penny more than what the board has authorized.
Okay,
So if we get to a point in the school year where we think we're gonna spend even 1 penny more than what the board has authorized, we have to come back to the board and request the ability to spend that extra penny.
okay,
Due to the special ed costs increasing, and then also due to the field turf being added, that's gonna probably run through our capital projects fund. You know, we're gonna get the funding loaded into the capital projects fund and pay out of that. Even if for some reason we got $10 million in extra revenue, we still couldn't spend another penny without coming to the board to request a extension.
gotcha. Okay, so it's an amendment to our budget.
Right.
Okay. Okay. So,
Any other discussion? There are some additions to the consent agenda.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the consent agenda with the additions.
Some motion's been made.
Second.
And seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Then we will adjourn at 9:01.
Awesome.
just like Carl said, they never run the song.
Every meeting.